are angry. We know that you are tired. We know that you want your neighborhoods back. You have suffered, and we will ensure those responsible face the consequences.
Slowly adds partners from all three levels of government are doing everything they can to end what he calls an illegal occupation of Ottawa. Alex Gouge, City News.
The federal government is under increasing pressure at home from Washington and also from Michigan's governor to end the protests that have shut down the Ambassador Bridge, as well as some other locations across the country. Now, pressure is building to end the protests at border crossings as well, places like Coutts, Alberta. Now, Prime Minister Trudeau did meet virtually with opposition leaders last night, later tweeting federal officials will keep working with provincial and municipal governments to try and end the protests. City News Time, 9:01. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
One more mild day for us, and then it's back into the deep freeze on Sunday. Super cold for Super Bowl Sunday. 2 to 3 centimeters of wet snow could accumulate today. Very wet snow. Gusty south wind, the high near +1. Flurries tonight near -2. And some flurries Saturday, but then clearing and falling temperatures. Sunday's high just -15. For today, the high +1.
And right now in Ottawa, -1 degree. It's 0 in Smiths Falls. City News Time, 9:02. The legal wheels in motion to get truck wheels moving again at the border crossings and in Ottawa. A judge considering a possible court injunction to clear the protests at the bridge in Windsor. Also word the provincial government planning to invoke some new emergency measures. Our Kevin Meisner now with what's being done to try and end these blockades.
An application for an injunction will be heard in Ontario Superior Court today. If granted, it would bar protesters from blocking the Ambassador Bridge in Windsor. The Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association applying for this injunction. Many of their members suggesting that they've essentially been shut down because of a lack of parts and the lack of delivery, and the movement of materials has essentially shut down plants and put a lot of people out of work temporarily. City of Windsor also granted intervener status here. Now, the proceedings were adjourned yesterday. The judge says while this matter is of great economic consequence, the ruling outlawing the protests would be very serious, and therefore the defendants, once they're identified who that would be, should be given a chance to respond. It's hoped that this hearing will resume at noon today. There are also reports this morning that Ontario is considering emergency measures to issue tougher fines and penalties to protesters in these situations. Premier Doug Ford set to meet with his cabinet today. Kevin Meisner, City News.
Now that meeting will be followed by the Premier and a gaggle of ministers. A briefing. City News will carry that live for you. It is scheduled to start at 10:30 this morning. Now, Ontario's top doctor says all COVID-19 measures are up for review. Dr. Kieran Moore says a wave of Omicron cases has peaked and it is time to resume other activities. He says he will make recommendations to government as early as next week about possibly speeding up the reopening plan for businesses in Ontario. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Separating headlines
from hearsay.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Friday. We made it. Although the work week's not over for us, we're in tomorrow's special edition of the Rob Snow Show tomorrow. Tentatively scheduled to start at noon tomorrow, maybe earlier, if the need arises. But thank you for spending some time with us today. I hope you'll spend some time with us tomorrow, too. Shaping up to be another massive day in the news business, maybe a critical day on the convoy file. We're all over it. Doug Ford having a news conference this morning, as you heard with Andrew. Dofo crashing the party. His news conference scheduled for 10:30 this morning. Now, these things have a habit of starting late. Sometimes when Doug Ford says, I'm going to have a news conference at 10:30, that really means noon. It's kind of a Newfoundland thing. But whenever it begins, we will bring it to you on City News. We are expecting some news. Premier Ford has been under heavy criticism for being MIA, to be generous. Throughout a lot of this, he's not said much about what's been going on in Ottawa, other than to ask the protesters to go home and find me a politician who hasn't made that request. Yesterday, his House leader, Paul Calandra, a retread from the Harper years, suggested, Ottawa, you have everything you need. You don't need anything more from us. And the Ontario government really hasn't done anything to help out Ottawa, which has kind of been the epicenter for this whole business for the last 15 days. But then the situation changed. We had the sympathy blockade, stop traffic on the Ambassador Bridge. And then the same thing happened at another crossing, the Blue Water Bridge, Sarnia, Ontario. And that's something that any premier of Ontario simply cannot ignore because of the impact that it has on the province's number one industry, the auto sector. Sarnia Observer newspaper reports this morning that the situation there has turned into, quote, a roadside camp on a piece of land next to Highway 402. And just like the fine folks here in Ottawa, they say they're not leaving anytime soon. So we'll see how that all unfolds. Premier Ford, 10:30, expected to announce some kind of power move. Queen's Park sources whispering sweet nothings into reporters' ears that it could involve new emergency measures that would allow for big fines against protesters blocking the border, maybe even the seizing of vehicles. Came out last night that the provincial government applied for and secured a court order to freeze all the money raised for the convoy from the other fundraising platform, Give, Send, Go. After the GoFundMe account was shut down, they went over to this other platform, Give, Send, Go, and that platform was used to raise millions of dollars, but now none of that money can be distributed. It's against the law. You would be in contempt of court. So that is the second move to starve the organizers of cash. As well, in the mix today is what's happening in Windsor. The city of Windsor has its lawyers in court sometime this morning seeking an injunction on behalf of the city that would declare the border blockade on the Ambassador Bridge illegal and give the police more power to act. An injunction. David, imagine that. A city going to court seeking an injunction.
I didn't know they were allowed to do that.
Goodness, where have I heard that before?
Oh, my God.
Like 4 days into the protest, there's the city of Windsor in court asking for an injunction. Here in the city of Ottawa, what do our lawyers do? Nothing! We leave it up to 21-year-olds, you know? You go hire your own lawyer in order to get some action. Something... It's amazing to watch how this idea of getting an injunction just like bedevils the powers that be at Ottawa City Hall. Meantime, we have the Americans, President Biden, the governor of Michigan, the Homeland Security Secretary, Pete Buttigieg, the Transportation Secretary. All of them are telling Mr. Trudeau, hey, get your act together. You're killing our trade relationship. Get those trucks off the bridge. So all to say, it's shaping up to be another whirlwind of a news day. So coming up on our show, all sorts of coverage and analysis. Tom Korski has been minding Ottawa's business all week. He is the managing editor of Blacklock's Reporter, the independent Parliament Hill news outlet. Tom and his team have been covering all the happenings in the House, in the committees, poring over government reports, participating in news conferences. Tom was covering the news conference that was held by Joël Lightbound this week, the Liberal member of Parliament from the Quebec City area. He was the MP who broke ranks and spoke out against the pandemic policies of the Prime Minister and said that they have been used as a wedge, that it is all political, that it is all political, that it's not about science, it's not about public health, it's about wedge politics. And to use his term, we should find that clip again, David, Mr. Lightbound, that we played earlier in the week. The word that he used was deliberate. That it is all deliberate. That a political decision was made on the eve of the election campaign and during the election campaign to use vaccines as a wedge to divide and to stigmatize.
From a positive and unifying approach, a decision was made to wedge, to divide, and to stigmatize. I fear that this politicization of the pandemic risks undermining the public's trust in our public health institutions.
Yeah. And since then, another Liberal MP, Yves Robillard, told the Hill Times he agreed with everything Mr. Lightbound said. Same with Nate Erskine Smith, another Liberal MP. Same with a Liberal MP from Thunder Bay. Same with a Liberal MP from Toronto. Anthony Housefather, Montreal area. Liberal MP says the Trudeau government has to start coming up with a plan for post-pandemic life, an exit strategy, which basically parrots what Jagmeet Singh was saying yesterday, the leader of the New Democrats. So there are these small fractures in Liberal land to end the week. But all of it will likely be overshadowed by the big screaming headline in the National Post this morning: I support the truckers, says Poilievre. I support the truckers, which, as you can imagine, has Liberal Twitter going haywire. Also on the Rob Snow Show this morning, nobody has declared an end to the pandemic. It goes on. There are still new cases every day. There are still people in the hospital. And sadly, people still die every day from COVID-19. But what's the situation here in Ottawa? How realistic is it that we could end all restrictions today? Tout de suite. Vite. We'll ask Dr. Doug Manuel, epidemiologist, senior scientist at the Ottawa Hospital. Emily Tamman will be back. She is with the law firm Champ and Associates. That is the law firm that went to court on behalf of the 21-year-old and won the injunction against the nonstop horn honking in the downtown core. So Emily Tamman's going to help us kind of navigate all the legal arguments that will be made today. The Queen's Park Week in Review is a go. Panel discussion with members of the provincial legislature. And we have lots of material to work with. Don't forget the Doug Ford News Conference. And between 10 and 11 o'clock, we'll take calls during the talkback hour. And today, it's the Friday free-for-all. Welcome to my world. The convoy, the protest, what some call the occupation of Ottawa. That's really been the one and only topic all week, but the discussion is pretty wide open on Fridays, within reason. Whatever you want to talk about, we're usually good to go. 750-1310 at 10 o'clock. All the news and your views on The Rob Snow Show on City News.
It's a space that needs to be lived in. It's a space that people, have to have an experience of more than just art on the walls. I think, yes, the art on the walls is fun, and it's fun to walk around and see all the beautiful things, and the way Dominic and Edith have curated the gallery is certainly something worth seeing. But coming by and asking questions, again, to Dominic's point of view is, interrupt him, ask questions. I'm here on most of the days too. We have Luce that comes in, Nancy that comes in. So we have quite a few opportunities for people to come in and see the process, and of course ask a few questions. It's a great space. Basically, the one event that we did do, is the jazz shows, the jazz and blues shows. And I think the weird thing to let you know is that the acoustics in here are really amazing. I think that was the first thing that blew me away when we started doing shows, or when I was helping out with the shows. And the other part of the business too is we do rent it out for special occasions too. So a few weddings, birthday parties, product launches, that kind of thing. So they're also a lot of fun. We do have one artist that's from the States, but of the 30-odd artists, the rest are from either Quebec, Ontario, and one beautiful woman from BC. But yeah, it's definitely part of the philosophy to maintain and canvas and show the beauty that we have in our backyard. You have the very, very strong personalities in Edith and Dominic, of course. It's wonderful to see how that actually balances out in the rest of the gallery. Without necessarily being, an objective, we basically have half female artists and half male artists in this gallery. But I can't say it's anything more than choosing the best people, and that's just the way it is. And I love that. I think it's great. You go through and you're like, wow, it's all pretty cool. And yep, it's half are women and half are men. It's cool. Like everyone else, we didn't know what to think, right? It's overwhelming at first. You just know that things are closed. And now you're trying to figure out what you do during that downtime, which I think everyone did. And I think in March, the first close, the first shutdown, it was a lot of actually recuperating and resting and not worrying too much on the spot. It's running a gallery is a bit like running a marathon with sprints. So there comes a time where, it's actually nice to just take a break. And then you wake up and realize that, okay, now it's time to wake up and deal with this new reality. From my perspective anyways, I think a gallery can be overwhelming, and I like to make it fun. So you're going to come in, I'll ask you questions, I might even joke around with you. The most people come here, they're not really going to buy art, but they could have a fun time and talk about it, right? And one of the things the gallery does offer is for local purchases, we'll be happy to drive it to your house and hang it for you.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
He's been minding Ottawa's business. Tom Korski is back from Blacklock's reporter. Good morning, Tom.
Hi, Rob.
Navigating the blockades all right?
Yes, I was among the Nazi hooligans just this morning.
You were? Okay.
Yeah, it was everyone seemed relaxed and happy. I had no sense of danger or even unpleasantness or inconvenience whatsoever.
I was wondering if you were going into the newsroom, or if you were working from home, or
every day. Yeah,
every day. Okay.
No, yeah. we haven't missed a day.
Haven't missed a day. Good. We caught the tail end of a question, but just the tail end that you had put to Joel Lightbound this week, the Liberal member of Parliament, during his news conference, but didn't hear the whole thing. So what did you ask Mr. Lightbound during that news conference?
Well, MP Lightbound, in his statement, a very poignant remarks, frankly, had used the word fear, that he had feared for in effect the consequences of what had been, in his opinion, a deliberate strategy by certain political leaders to stigmatize, to wedge, to divide. So the question was, well, fear of what? And that's an unknowable. MP Lightbound didn't elaborate on that. He merely repeated his statement. But it's interesting to hear a man who was chair of the Quebec Liberal Caucus put that on the table. Long after this blockade is over and the truck drivers go home and Parliament goes on with its business, the implication is there will be far-reaching effects, Rob, and they could be very significant.
Yeah. But it is. I found the word deliberate very useful to me when he was making his remarks, that it was a deliberate attempt to wedge, divide, and stigmatize. That it's sorry, Tom. Yeah.
No, not at all. And to what end, Rob? Right?
Well, to win. To win.
But just barely, and not a majority, which was the point. And then why would that continue? I mean, even if you're a very practical political person, you can say, well, sometimes it's a little rough, but this is the game. But if it's not a winning strategy, why would you persist in it? And, I have to say, and you know this, Ottawa is like the donkey of the G7 capitals right now. We're not looking good.
No.
And so what was the point of all that? If you're going to have an unpleasant strategy, you at least should have the satisfaction of saying, yes, but it worked. If it doesn't work, then what are you left with?
Well, I mean, it was the vaccine mandate for truckers was sort of I thought it was kind of dubious at best, that would be done in the name of whatever, science or public health to begin with. So anyway, let's move along and get into some of the other content from you and your team at Blacklock's Reporter, because I have to say, once you get onto a story, you really don't let go of it, and you've been dogged in your coverage of the Public Health Agency of Canada and the National Emergency Stockpile System, the NESS, and some reporting this week on that. Given how badly it was mishandled, how it was, I would say, neglected, how many people have been fired?
That came up in the Public Accounts Committee. MP Phil Lawrence from Peterborough asked that very question 6 times, and the answer was 0. No one gets fired in Ottawa. No. When was the last time a manager got fired in this town? That doesn't happen. This is really significant. And this is why the Public Accounts Committee has been on this, Rob. This is the moment where the Titanic hits the iceberg. From the second the pandemic occurs, March 11th, 2020, you had a pandemic fire department called the Public Health Agency, as you point out. It was their job. They were fully funded. It was their job. They had 11 warehouses, and they were supposed to be there. Bam, 4 months supply. Everyone gets a mask, medical gloves, no problem. And they had a severe shortage because it was grossly mismanaged. Who paid the consequence for that? Well, 2 million people lost their jobs. Tens of thousands of people lost their lives. Some MPs have raised the specter of criminal liability. Who got fired? Nobody.
I love this from the president of the Public Health Agency of Canada. This is cumulative responsibility. Okay, it's cumulative then. Okay.
So
it's not individual responsibility, it's cumulative responsibility.
Because when everyone's to blame, that means no one's to blame. I get that. Yeah.
Isn't that something? It's cumulative responsibility. So from there, this is a top-notch organization, the Public Health Agency of Canada, because from there, you go over into another story that your team has been all over, and that's the Data Scoop by the Public Health Agency of Canada. And testifying was Anne Cavoukian, appearing before committee, former privacy commissioner in the province of Ontario, an expert in data and privacy. What was she saying about this?
She told MPs, get upset. You better get upset about this. This is a serious problem. The same public health agency that didn't know how to run a mask warehouse did know how to buy data from telecom companies and millions of cell phone users, mobility data using cell tower tracking. You and I have discussed that in the past. The MPs voted this week to suspend that practice. Pending an outcome of an investigation by the Ethics Committee. But former Commissioner Cavoukian told MPs, this is fundamental. Privacy belongs to individuals. It doesn't belong to the government. And she equated in her testimony, privacy is freedom in a democracy. How else could it work? That's your mobility. That's where you go. Those are your friends. That's your cell phone. That doesn't belong to the guys who couldn't run the mask warehouse. The Public Health Agency has a lot to answer for, Rob.
Okay. So MPs voted to end that data collection program. Is that what you said, Tom?
They voted.
What was the original plan? What was the original plan? They were going to keep doing that?
Oh, and to the gates of hell.
Really?
The contract notice to extend it for 5 years. Long after the pandemic's over. This was a pandemic precaution? Oh, no, my friend. And Cavoukian makes the point. Isn't that always the case? Once an emergency measure comes in, it's funny. It persists long after the emergency ends.
Okay. From there, let's go to Via Rail. How's Via Rail doing?
They're not.
I can't remember the last time David, can you remember the last time you took the train? When was the last time you took the train?
Probably like 06, 07.
06. Okay, it's even longer than that for me. I think it was like 96, but there you go.
Bad times. Yeah, their revenues with the lockdowns and the bans on non-essential travel fell about 98%. What was interesting, they had a corporate plan they tabled in Parliament. You do that late at night, hope no one notices, and then their corporate plan, they said, look, we're going to need not only routine coverage of ongoing deficits, we're going to need bailouts until 2024 minimum, or you're looking at drastic cuts. Absolutely disastrous for that publicly owned railway.
Okay. Now, this would actually be right in the heart of the occupied territory of Ottawa, is the old U.S. Embassy. How long has that building been vacant now? Of course, they built a new U.S. Embassy. Some people call it the USS Embassy because it's such a monument, that building. But the old U.S. Embassy has been vacant for, gosh, it must be 2 decades, Tom.
It was 1999, and I remember 99. I think they still sold cars with ashtrays. Kenny Rogers was pretty popular. That's a long time ago, isn't it? Everyone was pumped up about the 21st century. And that's when the cabinet bought that.
But worried about Y2K. We were worried about Y2K.
It was a problem. And they spent $4.5 million on the building. It's been empty ever since. And then in 2017, it was going to be a portrait gallery.
Yes.
And Harper killed that because of cost overruns. And then in 2017, it was going to be an Indigenous people's place. The Prime Minister said so. There was a huge announcement. The photographers came out. And it's still sitting empty. Total cost to date, minimum, this is minimum, that we know of, $10 million.
$10 million.
$10 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
For an empty building.
But the 90s were great, weren't they, Rob?
Right across the street. Right across the street. Literally, like right across the street from Parliament Hill, from Center Block.
It should be a taxpayer's museum.
Today, I guess they could use it as a hostel for freedom fighters today. All right. Thank you. We'll talk next week, Tom. Always fun.
Rob.
Bye-bye. Managing editor at Blacklock's reporter Tom Korski. Right after the 9:30 news, it's the host of Daytime Ottawa on Rogers Television, Derek Fage. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, February 11th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 0. In Smiths Falls, 1 degree. And here's what's making news right now. It is being billed as a significant announcement coming in about 1 hour from now. The Premier, along with legal ministers and the Minister of Transportation, all scheduled to attend this briefing, scheduled for 10:30. Now, it comes as the province argues for an injunction against the Ambassador Bridge protest. That is going to be heard in Ontario's Superior Court today. The Prime Minister held a virtual meeting with opposition leaders yesterday and also government officials today. He's also going to be meeting with the American President Joe Biden. They will all discuss increasing pressure today on getting goods flowing across the Ambassador Bridge once again. Now, demonstrations are expected to ramp up at both Parliament Hill and Queen's Park. These trucker protesters, police forced in both cities. Police forces are preparing for another influx of protesters to hit this weekend. It's coming as police say they moved out a number of trucks this week in Ottawa through their negotiations. City News Time, 9:31. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Still ahead on the program, Dr. Doug Manuel, epidemiologist, senior scientist at the Ottawa Hospital on the COVID situation in the capital region. Dr. Doug Manuel has been part of our coverage here on City News and other local media outlets pretty much since the earliest days of the pandemic. So we're looking forward to getting Doug Manuel on the program as well. What else do we have coming up here? Talkback Hour Friday, free for all between 10 and 11 o'clock. That's always an adventure, always a lot of fun. You just never know what's going to happen. Emily Taman is a lawyer with Paul Champ and Associates. We're all anticipating what is coming up. Supposed to be in about an hour from now. Premier Doug Ford is going to hold a news conference and announce more measures. And Emily Taman was one of the lawyers who worked on the injunction here in Ottawa, represented the 21-year-old Ottawa resident who managed to secure an injunction against the horn honking of the truckers in the convoy here in Ottawa. So she's going to walk us through a lot of the legal arguments that are likely to be made as we have the Premier moving ahead with maybe some emergency measures. You also have the city of Windsor in court today seeking an injunction to try and clear traffic from the Ambassador Bridge. Josh Cobden is executive vice president of something called the Proof Strategies, and they do a thing called the Canadian Trust Index, where they survey Canadians and they ask about trust in various institutions. So that is coming up. Talk about, trust in government, trust in law enforcement, trust in the media. So we'll get the latest outlook on that. And we will also do the Queen's Park Week in Review, which is always a lot of fun. We have 3 MPPs, and we will certainly have no shortage of material today. 9:34. Here on the Rob Snow Show, we're having a little bit of an issue getting a hold of Derek. Derek Fage is usually here with us every Friday, so not quite sure. Might be a phone issue with Derek. Now, Dr. Doug Manuel, just ahead, as I mentioned, senior scientist at the Ottawa Hospital. Oh, he's on the line now, Dr. Doug Manuel. Okay, all right. We'll go a little early with Dr. Doug Manuel. Dr. Doug Manuel. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, we're flying by the seat of our pants, live radio here, So,
no problem.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm, you know what? I don't know how to answer that these days.
Really? Okay.
My partner says just say depleted.
Depleted.
I think we're all having a really tough time, and I want to acknowledge that in myself and everyone else as well.
Yeah. You still got the beard, or?
The beard is here, but it's more just a regular winter beard, not a apocalypse beard or anything like that.
Okay. How would you describe right now the situation with COVID-19 in the Ottawa area? Is it in decline?
We're in decline. We're in a good, solid decline. What I look for mostly these days, the metrics are the wastewater in the hospitals, and those are steadily coming down. We started kind of predicting wastewater, not only measuring it, but predicting it. And we're going to bring back the projections for hospital too. hopefully within a week, and they're both looking really good. So we're in decline. The question is how much of that is from the measures and how much of that is from immunization and immunity. And happy to talk about that.
Okay. Please do.
Okay. Well, I lead my own questions.
Yeah.
Well, for sure, a lot of it is the restrictive measures. But as we increase our immunity through vaccinations or getting infected, then that will, the wave will be more persistent. Then we're in the clear sort of thing. Then we're, the sunnier days are ahead. We're not quite in the sunnier days, but when I'm looking at what we're seeing in Ottawa, and in the science table we have these sort of red, yellow, green projections. It's all over the map because we have a really hard time estimating how many people have been infected with Omicron so far. If it's in this sort of 15, 20% range, then the risk of having sort of rebound going up is quite high. And if we're more in that kind of 30, 40% range, then we're over the crest. We can lift up more and more measures and it won't rebound up. We're probably actually in that kind of yellowish or like we're probably around 20 to 30% immunity, just looking at all the measures. Really important studies are going to be coming in next week and the week after, and we're going to be able to narrow that down. But so a lot of this is from the measures. Some of it is from building immunity, so it is getting better. All the projections later in the spring, April, May, June, are looking good.
There was a report this week, comments from the new Chief Medical Officer of Health in the province of Quebec, that the estimate is in the province of Quebec that through all of these waves, and because of how contagious or infectious Omicron was, that the estimate is close to 50% of Quebecers have had COVID-19.
I did number. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think of that number? And could it be comparable here in Ontario? Do you think?
I don't think. I don't think it's that high. We've talked about this at the science table, and we have a hard time, right, estimating it. The lower estimates are sort of 15%. I think a lot of people at the science table are reluctant to say higher than 30% or 35%. Okay. I am.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm reluctant. If we're at 50%, we would have to be, that's 500,000 people in Ottawa. I think we may have had as many as 10,000 a day. It's like 5-10 times more than being reported. But to get these numbers up into the 20, 30, 40,000 a day, it's really hard to see that in the wastewater or the hospitalizations or other metrics.
Okay. What is the R number still a useful metric for you, or the reproductive rate of the virus being, as long as it's what is it above? We want it below 1. Is that what it is?
We want it below. Right. Yeah, we want to sort of sustain it below 1. The problem is we can't estimate it from the cases, and that's what we've estimated through all the time. We have started estimating it. I think we're the first ones pretty much anywhere that have started estimating it from the wastewater.
Okay.
And that's on 613 COVID. It's kind of preliminary. We're still working on that, but we felt good enough to post it publicly, and we are below R1 from the wastewater.
Okay, which is good, right? Maybe not maybe not as reliable an indicator as it once was, just because of the way you're measuring it. But if you're measuring it accurately and it's below 1, that's good news for the city. So,
yeah, no, we're doing well. The schools have been open up for now 3 weeks. We saw a little bump in positivity, but that sort of flattened out from the schools and younger kids. We've been open now for, a week or so. That's still early, but we're coming down pretty fast, which says to me either our immunity level is pretty good, or the level of transmission from our restrictions have been really effective. Now, if we had, the one thing that's going to make us really, really good shape is if we got another 10 or 20% of people getting the third dose, or even 2 or 3% of people who are at risk who haven't got vaccinated yet. if we can get that bit more bump in vaccination, then we're going to be out of this into sunnier days.
Okay. Everybody wants to know, of course, just given what we've been through here in the capital over the last 14, 15 days with the convoy. And, we see what's happening in other parts of the country and, who knows, maybe in other countries at some point. We have to end all mandates. We have to end all mandates now. How possible is that? How safe would something like that be? No more masks, no more capacity limits, none of it. End it all.
It's pretty risky. Like Rob, I kind of want to make like Olympic analogies. I don't know if it makes sense, but I kind of think that we're all in this race for the first time. We're going down this hill. We never skied down this hill. We're actually not that good as skiers. Because this is the first pandemic we've been on, and we all want to get down to the hill first. No one's been able to successfully open yet. No one's been able to successfully run this race yet. And someone will be, but I'm kind of happy to have, a bunch of people fall down in front of me and kind of get this silver medal, and because that's the more safest route. We, last summer's best summer ever in Alberta turned out to be kind of the worst fall ever. And the quicker we jump on this, the more likely we are to fail. And I think that just the principles of going at the rate that the numbers support, so we want to stay in negative growth and open up, wait 2 weeks, wait 3 weeks.
3 weeks, yeah.
If it's good, open up more, et cetera.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's the plan now. We opened up a little bit at the end of January, and it's supposed to be on the 21st, like the Family Day long weekend, open up a little bit more, and then wait another 3 weeks, and then mid-March. So your advice would be, let's stick to that timeline.
For me, that's pandemic 101. Like, that's what we've learned has been the successful approach. And the folks that really open up quickly, no one has made that successfully yet.
Okay. What do you think about masks in the classroom? Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, we've had more masks in classrooms here in Canada than many places around the world. I think it's working well. Again, I like to remove all the mandates just like anyone else. Masks and vaccinations are our most important sort of interventions. So I wouldn't be throwing away the masks right away in class, but for sure there's going to be a point where we can take them off.
Okay. All right. So generally speaking, it's much more optimistic than previous interviews that I have done with you, Dr. Doug Manuel.
Thank you, Rob.
Which have been kind of, over the last kind of 6 months, kind of doomy gloomy at times, I have to say.
I know. Well, I think it's ours to lose. I think it's really hard. When we talked this time last year, we were talking about a race and that, how quickly can we vaccinate people? And we lost that race, Rob. We could have won it. And this is one's an easier race to win, but we haven't got it there. But the sunnier days are coming. January is brutal, and we're through it. And we get through February. March is going to be better. April is going to be better.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Doug. Talk soon.
Okay.
Yep. Dr. Doug Manuel, epidemiologist, senior scientist, Ottawa Hospital, and a member of Ontario's COVID-19 Science Advisory Table. And we really appreciate him being flexible for us this morning. Coming up, I believe we have connected with Derek. Yes? All right. Derek Fage, host of Daytime Ottawa Rogers Television. Coming up next on The Rob Snow Show on City News.
returns on Rogers TV and City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
He is the host of Daytime Ottawa, Rogers Television, Derek Fage. Good morning.
Good morning, Rob.
Hey,
Can you
great.
hear me loud and clear?
I hear
I'm
you.
calling from Casabasua.
In La Vallée de la Gatineau, home of the Hidden River. Okay. How are things up there?
They're lovely and very nice. The cell coverage is spotty, but
not as solid as it usually is, but
no.
That could be the case when you get into the Highlands. You know what you have to do. You got to find. I guess you got to find the CEO of Bell Canada. I guess that's where all the best high-speed internet and cell phone coverage is up around that way, right? So
yeah, I'm sitting in the corner of the living room on the arm of the couch, and David has told me not to move.
Don't move. Yeah,
but
just
I'm
stay
here
there.
for you guys.
Just
I'm
stay
here
right
for
there.
you.
Yeah. So what have you been up to all week?
Oh, daytime has been going well. It's actually been a nice distraction from everything else that's happening in Ottawa.
Right. Okay.
Great focus on local businesses and, some great organizations that need our help in the community. So it's been great to share some positive stories, to be honest with you.
Good. Okay. Yeah, that is a nice diversion, but that is not for our purposes today.
No.
Today it's about let's unleash the Derek. Okay. All right.
I won't get in trouble.
We're not doing the meal recipe Derek today. Okay.
Okay.
We want the fire in the belly, Derek, today.
I'm here.
So, look, what do you think about the handling of the protests? And let's kind of go through them. First of all, the Prime Minister. What do you think about how the Prime Minister's been doing? You know what's happened? They've cut him off. The government has cut Derek off. That's what's happened. The Prime Minister has intervened and is we're. Some people would think that, Derek is in rural West Quebec right now, so we're having a little bit of trouble with the telephone coverage this morning. We had some problems connecting originally, but let's just see. David is trying to tune him in right now.
Lean the other way. No,
no, the other way.
Put one up. Put one.
No, the other
arm up
left.
in the air.
The other left, Derek. The other left. All right,
that's better.
It is better. Okay. All right. On the. Okay. Let's see how this goes.
Okay.
All right. Okay. The Prime Minister. The Prime Minister. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he dropped the ball from the beginning. I think what he had to do is, and people need to understand, he can't associate himself with this leadership group. And I said it on the show when I filled in for you, Rob. I'm not going to do people's homework. You want to find out about this leadership group? It's easy to do. You go online and you look these people up. And let's not forget also the resources that the Prime Minister of this country has available to him. He knows exactly the history behind all of these people, and he cannot sit down and quote unquote negotiation that was going on. Yeah, perhaps, but he associated himself. What the Prime Minister should have done, though, is speak for all the people who understand who they're associating themselves with in this protest. These are people, like I was saying, I saw friends from high school that came down, and they're top students, right? They were down there because
All right.
their body.
Okay.
Right?
All right. I don't think this is going to work this week. 9:52. I'm sorry about that, and I know Derek is sorry about that too. Just can't make the phone work this week, so I think we'll have to move on with that. Again, Talkback Hour is coming up right after the 10 o'clock news, and it's the Friday free-for-all, okay? And what I would suggest is that you call early after the 10 o'clock news, because our time might be limited. We may only have a half an hour for phone calls, because the Doug Ford News Conference is at 10:30. Now, I'm not here to evangelize, okay? That's not my job to evangelize. I'm not really qualified to speak about faith. But there has been so much happening, and I have a lot of trouble understanding when it comes to this movement, the Freedom Convoy. I have a lot of trouble understanding certain aspects of it. And as the work week comes to a close, it's just kind of, I have to say to you that one of the great troubles that I'm having is trying to understand the faith side of this whole thing. I'm trying, I look at what's been going on in the city over the last 2 weeks. I struggle with the idea that some of these protesters say they're doing this in the name of Christ, in the name of Jesus Christ. Because I keep asking myself, what is Christian about this? What is Christian about this? Wouldn't it be nice to get some of the leading pastors or ministers or clergy in the city to speak to the Christian elements of this demonstration? Wouldn't it be nice to know what Jesus would really think of all this? I don't comment on religious matters very often. I'm not overly religious myself. I don't attend church regularly. I doubt most people listening are religious at all. And people who are religious or have faith may represent many faiths, not just the Christian faith. But I mean, the money is rolled in, and it's rolled in from a Christian fundraising site. When the Bible says no one can serve two masters, for he will either hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. And yet that hasn't stopped some from trying. I drove all around Centertown very early this morning. Kent Street is really quite a scene. Even after 2 weeks, it is still quite a scene on Kent Street. I don't know what you call it. It's a compound. I lived for so many years as a younger man in Centertown. I think back to all the different addresses that I have had during my time here in Ottawa living in Centertown. So many of them not far from Kent Street. Gosh, when I drove by there this morning, it's intimidating. It is a neighborhood. The convoy has commandeered a neighborhood. And Jesus said, "Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself." Love thy neighbor as thyself. So to the protesters who are doing this in Jesus' name, are you loving thy neighbor as thyself? Love thy neighbor as thyself? Because Jesus doesn't only love your neighbors if they agree with you, or only love your conservative neighbors, or your liberal neighbors, or your blue-collar neighbors, or your white-collar neighbors. He says, love your neighbors. And that means all of your neighbors. Even those who disagree with you. Maybe even they passionately disagree with you, or you passionately disagree with you. You're still supposed to love them. Love them like you love yourself and pray for them every day. When these protesters, some of whom say, I guess, they're doing the Lord's work, when they drive around with their giant signs that say, F Trudeau, are they loving their neighbors? When they blow their horns all night, are they loving their neighbors? When they slow down traffic at the airport, when they slow down traffic on the Queensway, when they plan to do drive-bys by the schoolyard, are they loving their neighbors? And Jesus said, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites. You travel over land and sea to win a single convert, and when you have succeeded, you make them twice as much a child of hell as you are." There is much I fail to grasp about this convoy, and one is, how is any of this Christian? This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
#1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, February 11th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 1 degree in Smiths Falls, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. A disturbing tweet this morning from Ottawa City Councillor Catherine McKinney. She says, as expected, alarmed parents are reporting occupiers are harassing children and parents around some schools. She has sent a message to Ottawa Police Chief Peter Slowly asking what is being done. Are police defending the schools today, she asks. She also is begging Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson to tell us the plan to keep children safe. The Premier is set to make what is being called a significant announcement in about a half an hour's time. City News will carry that live for you, scheduled to start at 10:30. With the latest, here's City News reporter Kevin Meisner.
He'll be joined by the Solicitor General, Attorney General, and Minister of Transportation. The province has been considering emergency measures, including steeper fines and possibly the seizure of trucks and suspension of licenses to end the blockade of the Ambassador Bridge in Windsor. Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkin says the protest is holding up $400 million a day in goods, and if the illegal action does not end, protesters and their trucks will be removed.
We want this to end peacefully. We don't want anyone to get hurt, but left with no other choice, we'll have to bring equipment in and start moving vehicles off the road and get this economy humming again.
The bridge protest has also triggered worker layoffs, including at auto plants. Canadian and American truckers caught in the bridge closure are expressing frustration.
It's really disgusting. It affects everybody, right? I'm of the opinion if you break the law, you arrest and you go to jail.
Arguments for an injunction ending the bridge blockade will be heard in Ontario Superior Court today as well. Kevin Meisner, City News.
Now, provincial NDP leader Andrea Horwath is in Ottawa today. She is speaking with small businesses who have been affected by the occupation and outlined what she would like to see from the Premier's announcement coming up at 10:30.
I hope that he announces what we need, which is every single effort, every single tool to stop what's happening here in Ottawa as well as at the border.
Now, she says it is completely unthinkable that Ottawa gets left behind as the Premier turns his focus on clearing the Ambassador Bridge between Windsor and Detroit. City News Time, 10:03. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
One more mild day for us, and then it's back into the deep freeze on Sunday. Super cold for Super Bowl Sunday. 2 to 3 centimeters of wet snow could accumulate today. Very wet snow. Gusty south wind, the high near +1. Flurries tonight near -2. And some flurries Saturday, but then clearing and falling temperatures. Sunday's high just -15. For today, the high +1.
And right now in Ottawa, 0. In Smith Falls, it's 1 degree. Now, the Prime Minister has been holding a number of virtual meetings over the trucker protests. Here's City News reporter Irene Precklett.
The Prime Minister held a number of meetings last night, including with the leaders of the opposition. Justin Trudeau is calling for a united front against these ongoing demonstrations. Following the meeting, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh released a statement saying the Prime Minister needs to act urgently. He says there should be no politicizing of science and is calling on Trudeau to use the many tools at his disposal to put an end to the anti-vaccine mandate protests. Interim Conservative leader Candice Bergen tweeting she continues to call on Trudeau to take action to bring this to an end peacefully and quickly. Meanwhile, the governor of Michigan also calling on the bridge blockade to end, and there are reports she's offering the use of her state's equipment to move them. The Prime Minister has a meeting with the U.S. President today. It was scheduled to talk about Ukraine, but you can bet the blockade and trade disruption will be coming up. Irene Precklett, City News.
And I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Yes, it does, and it's the Friday free-for-all talkback hour. I would encourage you, if you want to participate in the talkback hour at 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. You'll want to call early because we may only have about 25 minutes for phone calls this morning instead of the usual full hour, because we will carry the Doug Ford News Conference when it begins, and it's scheduled to begin at 10:30. So with that being said, I will not waste any time talking anymore. Let's go to Karen in Nepean. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning, Rob. I just wanted to say I'm happy you raised that last point about Christianity and Jesus, etc. You did a lot of quotations that were accurate. So I'm just wanting to identify myself. I am actually a born-again Christian, and
right.
What this I'm very upset by the whole Christian adjective that they've added to a lot of this money that's coming in, etc. And I just wanted to give you a point of view that I have, is that evil has always been around.
Sure.
Jesus, if you remember, was tempted in the desert by the devil, so we call him the devil. And this is all prophesied in the Bible, that these are called the end times. We're heading towards really more evil, more evil, more evil if you look back 60 years. So my point is, it's prophesied in the Bible that the devil will try and bring down Christianity in the end times because he knows his time is limited to stop Jesus from winning. It's a war. It's called spiritual warfare. So what he has done, and this is all, of course, my opinion, but it's in the Bible. He has infiltrated the church, and it's prophesied that he will do that in the last days.
Yeah.
And so he's corrupted Christianity, and everybody's buying it, and they're going, "Oh my God!"
I guess my only point is, and I just was kind of struck by whatever happened to love thy neighbor, because there hasn't. I understand. Yeah, I understand that, Karen. It's just there doesn't seem to have been a lot of neighborliness going on in some neighborhoods, Karen. That was my only point. Okay, let's move along. When you hear somebody hang up, that's probably your best bet to get on in Bell's Corners. Keith, good morning, Keith.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good, sir. Thank you.
I've just was listening to your comments about Christianity.
Yes.
And I think Christians are using Jesus like a cruise missile. And it's just ridiculous.
Okay.
It's been said, I'm an agnostic, so therefore...
Sure. Yeah.
It's been said that God created man and Lucifer created religion. And I really don't think God gives a damn damn about what's going on down on Wellington and the rest of the places. He just wants to see how we work it out amongst ourselves.
Right. Okay.
And that's great entertainment.
You find this entertaining? You think it's all entertaining?
This is gruesomely entertaining.
Gruesomely entertaining. Okay. All right. Okay.
It's like watching a train wreck, and you know.
Well, yeah, I guess we're all kind of rubbernecking.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a good point, I suppose.
But I read a book. I finished a book last month called "Could It Happen Here?"
Okay.
Canada in the Age of Trump and Brexit. Michael Adams.
Okay.
And I concluded that that January 6th could not happen here.
Oh.
And then 3 weeks later, ta-da! Everybody showed up on Wellington Street.
Well, yeah. We haven't had any kind of January 6th sort of thing.
No, not
happen.
quite. But it's still
fingers crossed.
The Canadian version.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, please.
Yeah. Okay, Keith, thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Yes, bye-bye. Okay. Again, we only probably have until about 10:30 to take some calls, so I'd like to take as many as we can before the bottom of the hour. In Ashton, Lindsay.
Hi there, Bob.
Hi, Lindsay. How are you?
Love your show.
Thank you.
Pretty well.
Good.
How's your mental health going this past few weeks?
Well, as Dr. Doug Manuel said, it's depleted.
Oh, Lordy.
Yeah.
So I'm a PSW.
PSW, okay. All right.
Yes, in the community. And I can't believe how selfish people are with the immunocompromised people and having no care for them. It's just beyond me.
Okay.
I may not be on topic today.
No, there is, it's Friday free for all. It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So I find it ridiculous and, it's just insane.
What specifically has kind of bugged you, Lindsay? What do you something specific come to mind, or?
Well, the people going into stores, no mask.
Okay. Okay.
I was taking care of a client the other day, and the father works at a grocery store in Carleton Place, and there was a truck that pulled up, and they stole firewood and washer fluid, and drove off.
Oh, okay.
So,
right.
where's, the freedom, so.
Okay. You think they were members of the convoy? Members of the convoy?
Yeah. They had the black shirts with the F Trudeau and blacked out license plates and took off, so.
Wow. That's not cool.
No, it's not. No. Don't feel too safe, and now hearing about the schools and the kids.
Yeah, I first got wind of this, I think it was on Wednesday. I first got wind of this. Somebody sent me an email that was sent to parents at the Renfrew County District School Board that something was being planned for Friday at 2:00, encouraging students to kind of do a anti-mask protest or whatever it is. Walkout kind of thing. But it's,
Yeah. No,
so I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens with that, so.
Yeah, I just fear for the young ones and their mental health as well, We're following along online and media, and they're not. And they're going to see how our reaction is to it. And
yeah, that'll be a big story this afternoon to see what happens with the final bell.
More your time.
All right, Lindsay. You call anytime. Thank you. Bye-bye. Yep. Take this one here. Yeah, sure. Lots of time for calls here. Beverly, Ottawa. Beverly.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Beverly. How are you?
I just want good. Thank you. How are you? I just wanted to mention that you weren't sure if there was going to be lots of Christians listening to your radio program, but we are. We're all listening.
Okay. All right.
And I just wanted to let you know that I like your points, but a couple things about the convoy. First of all, I worked for Amnesty International for years, so I'm a huge protester myself, but in a peaceful, respectful
For Amnesty
way.
International, you said, Beverly? Sorry?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, letter writing campaigns and some marches, etc.
Yeah.
But all very respectful, in and out. Like get in, get your point, get out, and then campaign through letter writing afterwards.
Okay.
Get your point across. But as far as the Christian thing, because I am a practicing believer, I just wanted to say that the word respect is so important. Throughout anything, it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a Christian or not, we're all supposed to respect people, and that includes government authorities. so, as we all know, that the respect word comes from Greek, right? Honor, value. So I think it's really important that people have lost touch at this convoy with what respect actually means. We can't be going off for such a long time, I don't think, to win our own point all the time. We have to respect others, get in, get out, and then campaign in different ways.
Right.
That's my point.
Okay. Thank you. It's really interesting. Yeah. It's nice to have that perspective. Let's take one more here. Keep them coming, people. Keep them coming. One free line there. It's yours. It's 750-1310. Derek in Ottawa. Derek.
Hey, good morning, Rob.
Hi, Derek.
Hey, I'm just calling about the that I think it's Go Send Go or something like that. I guess
the fundraising site. Yeah, the fundraising site. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it is a Christian fund, but I don't think it's Christians that are just supporting this. This is just another way to that everyone, like myself, I'm Catholic, can support freedom. Not necessarily the truckers. I know they keep calling the trucker convoy, but it's not just truckers. It's actually everyone who wants to just get their life back to normal.
Sure.
So
okay.
And
it seems to be headed in that direction. I mean, if it's about mandates and restrictions, doesn't it seem to be headed in that direction that things are going to be pretty? I would say things are going to probably be pretty wide open in Ontario, like another 5 weeks or so. It seems.
Yeah. I actually think all these
with or without the convoy.
Yeah, it's being expedited because of Canadians just having enough of it. We're just we just want to.
Well, I don't know. I mean, the plan this kind of in Ontario anyway. This 3 week thing was in place long before the convoy left British Columbia. So
yeah, I'm not necessarily talking about Ontario.
Okay.
I think if Ford just jumped on the bandwagon and said, yeah, we're going to do it. I mean, optics wouldn't look that good. But he's already saying that they're going to speed up things, and things are changing. It's going to happen.
Yeah, apparently at this update, according to our correspondent down there, Richard Southern in Toronto, he will announce fines and penalties. They has to do something about Sarnia and Windsor, Detroit. Can't have this happening at Sarnia and Windsor, Detroit. But he's not. He's not going to announce any kind of speeding up of the restrictions. He's just not going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's just getting their point across. It's not necessarily just truckers. It's everyone. And I mean, if they wanted to, there would be other protests popping up. And it's not just truckers. I mean, the support is there behind them. However,
there's some support there. I don't think they're doing themselves any favors.
No. I mean, it's just increasing the price of goods for everyone, including myself. I mean, things are getting expensive. They're getting their point across, and I think it's actually working. But I think it's time to this should come to an end. Hopefully,
and that that's I think some people like the Prime Minister. I think are still kind of not with that program, and I think even thank you, Derek. Chantal Lebert pointed that out on CBC last night, the Toronto Star columnist, that the mood in the country about, quote unquote, living with COVID, learning to live with it, and moving beyond this kind of blunt instrument of lockdowns, the mood in the country has shifted, but the Prime Minister is not, and he's being left behind, to paraphrase what she said last night. 10:17, Rob Snow Show, City News.
Well, we all loved our rock T-shirts growing up, right? It was our badge. Hey, we went to this concert. We knew that band inside out. So we kept doing that and kept promoting that. What's sort of happening now is that audience is dying. I always say the earth is flat. So the 60s rockers are falling off the end of the earth. So you don't see as big a sales anymore because my audience is disappearing. What's sort of helping to promote that history is the kids are buying vinyl. And luckily we have a vinyl shop in the neighborhood here, Record Center. So what's happening is I've seen kids come in with their dad. And the dad say, hey, do you have any Beatles shirts? Do you have any CBGB? Do you have any of this? I said, well, why? He said, well, because my daughter's into it. she's wearing my T-shirt. So slowly it's coming back, right? The kids are, I think, getting fed up with the generic music that's out there, and they want to click into something that, first of all, links them to their parents, something that they thoroughly enjoy now, and maybe they're passing it on to their grandkids. Pandemic has been a couple of things, definitely hard on everybody. So much messaging that's out there that people don't understand, stats that every day. Jesus, Murphy, like I'm getting a headache just reading this stuff, right? So really it was just trying to understand where we were going to go from there. The city of Ottawa all of a sudden said everybody's got to wear a mask. You got to wear it on the bus. People were scrambling, okay? And I had the store next door had really big windows, so I just flooded the window with masks. Well, that was the activity that saved the business. People were coming in buying 2, 3, 4 masks at a time at $20 a pop here. But my masks were so different. They were the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Queen, all the pop culture. Everything else out there was medical masks. And right, so people said, "Oh, I don't want to do that. I want to show my rock and roll." So it became the new T-shirt as far as I'm concerned. Well, what I've done, I'm Hindenburg. I'm now at 1114A Wellington Street, which is next door to the Fab Gear store. And the reason I've changed names, I've rebranded the store, is because I was planning on retiring. And in December, I go, "Oh, I'm not going to retire," but I've committed to changing what the store is about. So I came up with a new name, Fab Gear's Rock Shop, where legends are dressed, and essentially get that message out. I prefer, if the shirt don't fit, you come in, you try another one on. People like to feel the fabrics with clothing. It's amazing. You'll come in and go, "Oh, I love that. Oh, can I try this?" So that's the big difference. I'm not out to make a gazillion dollars. I stick the way I am, old school. I take cash, we take cards. Come on in and talk to the owner.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Okay, so again, a reminder, Doug Ford's going to crash our talkback hour. We have received no indication from Queen's Park that this is running behind schedule or will be delayed. Sometimes that happens. We get late word that it may be delayed, but so far it's 10:30 for the Doug Ford news conference. We are expecting some developments to come out of that regarding these protests. So if you want to have your say on the talkback hour, you'll have to do it now and do it fast. Betty Ann in Ottawa South. Betty Ann.
Good morning, Rob.
Hi, Betty Ann.
I first want to tell you that I really enjoy Ian Lee, and I agree with what he said last time he was on.
All right, okay.
I really enjoy your show.
Thank you. Thank you. Very kind.
One thing amazes me, that Trudeau and his gang were the ones that lit the match that started this whole fire, but nobody seems to be holding him responsible. Like, who's yelling at him? Like they yell at Stoley and all that stuff.
Slowly, yeah.
Slowly,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And I hope that Trudeau, Medicino, and Blair are really proud of the catastrophic disaster they have unleashed in Canada and around the world.
My gosh.
And does their arrogance even permit them to feel any remorse?
Yeah, it's quite something. His own member of parliament, Mr. Lightbound, said this week, the whole vaccine issue was deliberate. A deliberate wedge to divide and stigmatize.
I really believe that.
Right.
I really do.
And
I'm glad that
it's been that ever since. It's been that ever since. Now, the Conservatives haven't done themselves any favors either. I don't think, Betty Ann. I'd like to know what you think. They kind of wrap themselves up in the convoy, right?
I think it's hard to know what side to take in this mess.
Right.
I did support them at the beginning, but I think that the longer it's prolonged, in some ways, the more support they're losing. But then in some ways, they're gaining more support, like worldwide.
Yeah.
So it's really a big fat mess.
It is a big fat mess. Yes, it is.
I don't know what the answer is going to be. And I think if they use violence, it's only going to make it worse.
It'd be terrible. Yes. Yeah.
Then they're going to get more people on side with the convoy if they start, doing things they shouldn't be doing in Canada.
All right, Betty Ann. Thank you for your comments and sharing your opinions and those kind words. Yep. Very kind of you. Let's take this one. Dan in Orleans. Dan.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, Dan.
So I'm feeling like what we see downtown right now is predominantly white people and white men.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first time in their lives they've had a single limitation on their freedoms put on them. And look what happens. They show up in droves and start to use slogans like "My body, my choice," which, you know, is something that women have been using to defend their body integrity for decades around abortion rights and other things. And these guys just sat at home and frankly didn't care.
Okay.
So part of me is thinking, imagine what would happen if these types of people showed up when underprivileged groups actually had real issues to deal with and limitations put on their freedoms. It was just, we'd have a totally different country. First thing I wanted to say.
Okay.
And the other one is, okay, I agree with you that Trudeau is definitely missing the mood, and the Canadian public mood has shifted on mandates and lockdowns, and he's kind of behind the 8 ball here.
Well, now he's wedged himself, right?
Right.
Because he can't even appear to give an inch, because it will look as though he's placated to people that he has just spent the last 2 weeks calling every name in the book. So
that's right.
Yeah.
But we've all had Omicron, or basically everyone we know has had Omicron if we haven't had it, and none of us ended up in the hospital, or very few of us. And we're looking at this and saying, okay, it's probably time to stop using this single method of lockdowns and mandates as a way to protect a inherently underfunded healthcare system, and start to look at ways to maybe fix the systemic problems in healthcare instead of relying on this, because it's not working and people are sick of it.
All right. Thank you, Dan. Very interesting takes this morning. I'm going to try and squeeze as many as I can in here before 10:30. Barry, Ottawa. Barry.
Good morning, Rob.
Hey, Barry.
As a retired truck driver, Rob, I think these guys have gotten their message across, and I think that it's about time they packed her up and went home, because, you know, they're just causing problems. And one thing I've sort of wondered, Rob, along the side is sort of a little bit away from the extremity of all this to do with the economy and stuff on the Ambassador Bridge, but noticing on TV how many trucks are almost parked on the Ambassador Bridge, it makes me wonder, with all the problems they've had with bridges collapsing in the States and stuff, and the disrepair of bridges in the States, that when the Ambassador Bridge was built, and what kind of, has anybody consulted a structural engineer to see if it's safe for all these trucks to be parked or going really slowly with all that weight on the Ambassador Bridge? If somebody was smart enough, they would stop the traffic and let the bridge clear and only let so many vehicles go across at a time, because to me, it would be just as catastrophic if that bridge did collapse. There would be loss of life with people parked on it like that, and it would also, what other route would they have to reroute all these border crossings that go for GM and all the parts?
Right. Yeah.
All the truck traffic. But I also wanted to just say, Rob, that, you know, back when Stephen Harper was campaigning against Justin Trudeau, Stephen Harper had a TV campaign ad that showed a picture of Justin, and it said, "He's just not ready."
Just not ready. That's right. Yeah. Nice hair, though. Nice hair.
How long ago was that?
That was 2015. Yeah.
Yeah, and now we see him walking out of Parliament, walking out of question period, and, you know, just doing nothing about
Barry, thanks for your call. I want to get in some other callers here. I mean, there is this belief that he's not into the job right now. That he appears to be disinterested. Peter in Ottawa. Peter.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Peter.
I just kind of wonder, I feel like Trudeau's getting a bit of a pass on some stuff.
Okay.
He's been he's accused the truckers, everybody down there, as being Nazis, racist, all this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yet, I wonder, Trudeau dressed in blackface more than once, put a banana down.
Well, he was asked how many times, and he didn't know. He couldn't say.
Well, I'm just saying that if you have an individual dressing in blackface in a derogatory way, like acting
I don't
like
think
a
there's
monkey.
any other way. Yeah.
It can be extremes, and going around like a monkey, having a bandana down your pants. I'm just surprised that that's not coming back to bite him when he's accusing others of being
Sure. Yeah, right? Of course, that's all over social media, right? Whenever, in the Twitter, partisan Twitter war of social media, that is all over Twitter. Anyway, it's Twitter. It's not even the real world. I'm going to let's take this one. Ian in Brockville.
Okay, Rob.
Stranger. There you go. Okay.
Good thing I can talk quick. Okay, so I'm not speaking for all of the people involved in this protest. I'm going to remain a neutral party and give you a little bit of life experience I gained after spending 10 years on the western side of Canada. I went out there with no money in my pocket. Never have I ever gone to a gas station in my life and had so many people say, "Don't worry, buddy, your tank's on me." I've never spent so many times in a Tim Hortons drive-through when I have to pay it forward because the guy just paid in front of me. Got that a lot in Alberta. Whether it be cities getting covered in water, the cost of living down in the far west side of BC there, whether it be Farmer Joe out in Alberta, whatever is going on with the government is going on with the government. He's just trying to find out whether or not Mother Nature is going to gift him a new combine or a sale of his farm this year. What I'm getting at, Rob, is for the 1% of people that are down there right now who are actually starting to wonder, why am I still down here? The reason why they're still there is because the western side of Canada, I cannot find the word to describe the resilience of those boys and girls. They watch cities burn to the ground, for crying out loud. To think that people up on that hill are actually questioning how much these people are dedicated to this cause. These guys are some of the strongest people in Canada. Do not underestimate these guys.
No, Ian, but I guess we're just wondering now, to what end, Ian?
Now, that I wish I had an answer for, Rob.
Yeah,
I don't know. I wish I did.
You and me both. So, look, we're going to stop. If you want, you can take the chance and hang on the line, and maybe I will get to your call. Our entire future for the next half hour hinges on Doug Ford. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, February 11th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, 0. In Smiths Falls, 2 degrees. And here's what's making news at this hour. Somerset Councillor Catherine McKenney says she is hearing from parents who say protesters are harassing children and parents at some Ottawa schools this morning. Protesters did ponder to bring the protest to schools in a Twitter post yesterday. McKinney says that they've sent a note to Police Chief Peter Sloley and Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson, urging them to defend schools and keep children safe. Fellow councillor Jeff Leeper tweeting it's his perception there are more verbal abuses being hurled from protesters to people around Hintonburg and Westboro. Now, he is asking people who are harassed to contact police, but also to let him know. This is happening as more protesters apparently going to start arriving today to settle in for another weekend of demonstrations in Ottawa. Police have already urged those planning on coming not to. The Premier, Solicitor General, Attorney General, and Minister of Transportation all scheduled to hold a media briefing. That was scheduled to start about 3 minutes ago. It still hasn't. When it does, though, we will carry that for you live on City News. COVID hospitalizations and ICU numbers continue to decline in Ontario. The province reporting a drop of 68 people in hospital today, another 10 fewer requiring ICU treatment. City News time, 10:33. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
And we will continue to take your calls here during the Friday free-for-all until the Doug Ford News Conference begins, which could be an hour from now, could be 30 seconds from now. But when it begins, we'll take it. So who do we have here? Abe in Orleans. Good morning, Abe.
How are you, Rob?
Good, Abe.
I want to just take it away from our backyard for a second and bring it globally. I seen a TikTok today while I was just, minding my own business. It was a clip of interview from the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin there.
Okay.
And basically he was, just to give you the gist of it, he was saying that if Ukraine joins NATO and then tries to take back their city, the other countries that are alliance with NATO are going to be drawn into a conflict that no one wants because there won't be any winners, he said.
Okay.
That's scary, no?
Sorry?
That's kind of scary, no?
Oh, kind of scary, yeah. Kind of scary. Yeah, the whole situation in Ukraine is scary because of the track record of Putin and Ukraine. They just marched right in and seized Crimea, right?
Yeah.
When was that, 2014?
He said if there's any military action taken, then it's going to go down, supposedly.
Well, yeah, but what would you expect him to say, right? And isn't the President of the United States saying the same thing?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It just it goes to show, like, on a global scale, how crazy things can be. I know even here it's crazy, too, right, with the whole protests and whatnot.
Yes, yes.
But I think it's our problems here is less compared to
It pales in comparison to what they're facing in Ukraine, for example.
Yeah.
Here in Ottawa, we have, people say they're fighting for their freedom. People on the Russia-Ukrainian border right now on the Ukraine side are
literally
fearing that the tanks are going to roll over the border any day now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as they have before.
Just to give.
Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off. Jay the Socialist.
Rob, my favorite icon.
Yeah. Yes, I never knew I would be named after a condo tower at Carling and Preston, but there you go. All right, Jay.
Kardashian used to be my favorite icon, but now it's you, Danny.
Yeah, I should come out with a makeup line.
I've got a couple of things I want to say. The first is, Rob, we have been very, very lucky in Ottawa. We're lucky that the people organizing and running this thing are such incompetent clowns. If this had been something like the Irish Republican Army or even the FLQ, people would be dead in downtown Ottawa right now. Like, we don't treat the security of our Capitol Hill area seriously. And another point is the fact that these organizers are such clowns. If they deliberately set out to lose support, could they possibly be more successful than what they've done so far? Now they're targeting schools. Schools. Like, if you tried to lose support, you could not possibly be more effective than this.
Yeah.
Another part of the problem we have is the grift that's going on. People are making a bank off this thing, especially the organizers. The whole economy of live streamers that have popped up all night long, it's nothing but live streamers filming live streamers downtown and raking in dough.
Okay. All right. Okay. Good points, Jay. Good points. Thank you. We have the public broadcaster reporting 1 lane of traffic is now crossing the Ambassador Bridge. Is it Canada bound or America bound? It's 1 lane. Okay. Darlene.
Rob.
Hi, Darlene.
I think the truckers, and I refuse to call them the freedom truckers.
Okay.
I was looking forward to them coming at first because Canada is so disrupted, so depressed, so diminished that I thought, okay, they're going to air some of what all Canadians are feeling, or most Canadians.
Vent some frustration or something.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
But when I found out so many despicable things, but when I found out they were using their children, some of them, as shields.
Is that what you think they're doing?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, because our most precious commodity is our children. And to know that they had guns in some of those trucks. And great article in the Washington Post brought in the $3 million raised by a Christian organization.
Oh, it's more than that now. Yeah, it's more than $7 million. But Doug Ford had the Ontario government lawyers go to court, and they've I don't know if you would call it they've seized the money, but they have stopped the distribution of that money. So,
good.
Yeah, that happened last night, Darlene. So,
wonderful. Yeah. And can I ask you a question? I was sending out Pierre Poilievre's speech, announcing his candidacy for Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And one of the points he made was about the freedoms we have. Mm-hmm. And he said freedom to make our own health and vaccine choices. And I thought, what in the name of God do you mean by vaccine choices?
Oh, okay.
Bring us to what we have now. I listened to it 3 times. And vaccine choices, with him, we'd end up with the same mess that we have now. A pandemic doesn't come down to very many choices. It needs leadership. We don't have leadership.
Oh, really? Okay.
And yeah.
I thought you were a fan of his.
I supported him.
Yeah.
And I thought, I misheard on your radio show,
Right.
And so I went down.
And you listened to it yourself and...
Listened 3 times.
Listened 3 times,
because I couldn't believe.
Right.
Talking about our freedoms. Make your own health and vaccine choices.
Okay. All right, Darlene. Okay, thank you. Thank you for calling. I don't know when Doug is going to start here, Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, so we're going to keep taking calls until he begins. Charlotte Lake, Kevin.
How's it going today?
It goes. With or without me, things go. Kevin.
Yes, it does.
Yes, sir.
After the protest did stay past the weekend, I had a talk with my sister on the Monday, and she didn't understand why they were still there because things were starting to open up for people again at that point.
Right.
But I had to drive home the point that it opens up for the people who got vaccinated. For all the people who didn't choose to get vaccinated, they are still living under restrictions for multiple things. For how long? Indefinitely? There's no timeline on that.
Right. So you think there should be, I think there's growing sentiment now. There has to be some kind of exit plan, right?
Absolutely needs to be an exit plan.
For example, in Saskatchewan, Scott Moe's government did away with the vaccine passport. I believe Jason Kenney's government's getting rid of the vaccine passport as well, right? So that would be a big thing for unvaccinated people, get rid of the vaccine passport system, right? So.
That would definitely be a start. My worry would be when can they implement it back into place, if ever? Because, just maybe they might say words right now to get the convoy to move along,
right,
but will it still be something that will just come back up, say, March, maybe next year? So we really need to clarify on these, points.
Well, yeah, Mr. Lightbound, the Liberal member of Parliament, said all of these emergency measures, by their very nature, under peace, order, and good government, which is one of the foundational principles of Canada, is that any kind of emergency measure must be extraordinary, only happen in extraordinary circumstances, and they must be temporary in nature. That's the very essence of using any kind of emergency measures under peace, order, and good government. That the situation has to be extraordinary. Pandemic, extraordinary, certainly, but temporary in nature. Not open-ended. Not open-ended.
It doesn't seem temporary for a lot of the people who have lost their jobs over this.
Of course not.
As you know, that's why the truckers have arrived at all the multiple locations they have, because they didn't say, for the next year or so, you can't cross the border. It seemed to them it's an indefinite thing for them.
Yeah. That was one of the points. That was one of the points that Mr. Lightbound made this week, and it's something that Anthony Housefather. These are like Quebec members of Parliament. I mean, Mr. Trudeau has built his whole path to electoral victory around Fortress Quebec. That's one of the interesting subplots here. Jennifer in Ottawa. Jennifer, you're on City News.
Hi, good morning, Rob.
Hi, Jennifer. I'm here. Go ahead.
I just wanted to call. You had asked a question the other day of how this is all going to end.
How's it all? That was yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, so a bit of a prediction. I believe the U.S. government is going to end this for Justin Trudeau.
Okay. How so?
So I know he has a phone call with Joe Biden today.
Yeah. It's not supposed to be about this. It's about Ukraine, but
I think there's going to be some political pressure there from the U.S. They're going into a midterm election this year. Joe Biden is already underwater, with polling.
Big time.
And this is the last thing he needs right now is to have, that border blocked.
Plus, he doesn't want his own trucker convoy.
Well, and that's supposed to start March 5th.
And there's a story that supply disruptions could affect the Super Bowl, so he doesn't want to screw up everybody's Super Bowl, right? Super Bowl Sunday.
And
so
that convoy in that you're talking about it on the U.S. side, that has a date of March 5th going from California to D.C. So they're panicking right now. They do not want this to come there. So I believe there's going to be a lot of political pressure. And I think the easiest way that they're going to solve this is the mandates on both sides are going to get dropped.
Yeah, I was wondering if maybe it's a very interesting scenario that you lay out. Does Joe Biden bail out Justin Trudeau by ending the American vaccine mandate for cross-border truckers?
Well, I believe so, and I think Joe Biden is also going to use, he was taken to the Supreme Court last month for his federal mandate on companies of employees 100 or more.
Yeah.
And he lost.
Yeah. You're right, Jennifer. Paying close attention. Thank you. I gotta go. Let's stop. Doug Ford may start anytime soon, so I have to get a commercial break in. 750-1310, though. Rob Snow Show on City News.
My name is Pamela Caillou. I'm a local artist. I'm Métis, and the heritage derives from Algonquin and Huron background. That comes from way, way back from the 1600s. I was trained in school classically, like we studied the masters like Picasso, Michelangelo, Van Gogh, and so you'd have to say it's quite different, my style. What I've done is taken the skills that were taught to me by traditional painting and incorporated that with the Indigenous heritage. My art pieces incorporate the energy and spirit of the Mother Earth in pretty much every single one of them, because I want people to realize, even though we might think we are the masters of the domain here on the planet, that is not the case. It's the Mother Earth that's providing a balance and our causes to live and whatnot. And it's just always see her and remember her and respect her. Well, I try to keep my style different because there are like a handful of Canadian artists that are really well known, like Norval Morrisseau and whatnot, but it's been done. So I kind of want to stay away from the pack, and that's what makes my artwork a little more unique. But at the same time, if you're looking at it, you do know it's Indigenous, and you do know it's the woodland style. I usually start by coming up with an idea, which would be, let's say, 4 days. Well, it depends what's inspiring me at the time. It could be a lot of trees, it could be water, it could be the medicine wheel. I would choose a subject and try to really incorporate what it is I want people to see from that. So then from there, I would have sketchbooks, and I do little sketches of everything because the canvas is expensive. So you don't want to start something and have to throw it away. And then from there, I go on to the bigger piece on the canvas. Once I have on my sketches the direction I want to take my artwork in. I chose a lot of vibrant colors for the pieces because if somebody is willing to make the commitment to have my piece of work in their home, I would actually like them to come home after a long, hard day, and some days aren't so great, to look at something that's very joyful.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
10:49, and live now is Ontario Premier Doug Ford. This is City News.
Well, good morning. Faced with an unprecedented threat to our health and safety, faced with a very real prospect, patients being turned away from overwhelmed hospitals, faced with consequences of inaction, this virus has consistently forced us to make decisions that no one ever wanted to make. Looking at where we are right now and how far we've come, pushing Omicron back, there's no doubt these were the right decisions. There's no doubt they protected our hospitals from collapse and saved lives. Today, we're on track to very soon remove almost all restrictions for businesses as part of our reopening plan. And we heard from Dr. Moore last week and again yesterday that he is now working on a plan that will allow us to remove the vaccine passport system. My friends, this is great news and a sign of just how far we've come together in this fight. But this progress doesn't change what we've been through, because the truth is, this virus forced us to make unthinkable sacrifices. And I know that this has been extremely, extremely difficult. Watching businesses close, livelihoods lost, freedoms restricted. None of this has been easy. People are frustrated, they're scared, they're angry. And I know these frustrations have reached a boiling point for many Canadians. The result is what we're now seeing in various cities across our province and our country. My friends, one of the great things about living in Canada is our right to free speech, the right to choose our government by voting for leaders that best represent us, the right to peacefully protest when we disagree with what our government is doing. But like all rights, these are not without reasonable limits. Our economy in Ontario is built on trade, especially with our partners in the United States. The Ambassador Bridge in Windsor alone sees more than $700 million of two-way trade every single day. And that trade employs hundreds of thousands of Ontarians who work in auto plants and factories across our great province. Those jobs feed millions of families. They are the lifeline for our province and its economy. And while I appreciate the right to protest, that right cannot and must not extend to cutting off that lifeline. We're now 2 weeks into the siege of the city of Ottawa. I call it a siege because that's what it is. It's an illegal occupation. This is no longer a protest. With a protest, you peacefully make your point and you go back home. And I know that the vast majority of the people did that. They came, they peacefully demonstrated, they made their point, and they left. And I want to say to those people, you've been heard loud and clear. Canada has heard you. My message to those still in Ottawa, to those at our border crossings, please go home. To those of you who have brought your children, please take them home. I urge you, it's time to leave. And it's time to do so peacefully. But to the very small groups who've chosen to take a different path, to those who have chosen to take a city of 1 million people hostage for the past 2 weeks, to those who've attempted to disrupt our way of life by targeting our lifeline for food, fuel, and goods across our borders, to those trying to force a political agenda through disruption, intimidation, and chaos. My message to you is this: your right to make a political statement does not outweigh the right of hundreds of thousands. It does not outweigh our right to get food across our borders. Your right to make a political statement does not outweigh the rights of 1 million people in Ottawa to live peacefully, free of harassment and chaos in their own homes. So let me be as clear as I can. There will be consequences for these actions, and they will be severe. We've already started by going after the money funding the illegal occupation. Yesterday, an Ontario court granted our request to freeze the funds from Give, Send, Go for the convoy. The OPP has also provided additional resources to Ottawa Police Services and Windsor Police Services to satisfy their recent requests for operational support. And more needs to be done. We're strengthening the tools and the powers of our police forces to resolve this situation and restore order. Let me be clear. The government does not direct our police forces, but we do set the laws. Today, I'm using my authority as Premier of Ontario to declare a state of emergency in our province. And I will convene Cabinet to use legal authorities to urgently enact orders that will make crystal clear it is illegal and punishable to block and impede the movement of goods, people, and services along critical infrastructure. This will include protecting international border crossings, 400 series highways, airports, ports, bridges, and railways. It will also include protecting the safe and essential movement of ambulatory and medical services, public transit, municipal and provincial roadways, as well as pedestrian walkways. Fines for noncompliance will be severe, with a maximum penalty of $100,000 and up to a year imprisonment. We will also provide additional authority to consider taking away the personal and commercial licenses of anyone who doesn't comply with these orders. This will not impede the rights of Ontarians to peacefully protest. It will provide additional tools to help stop the illegal occupation of Ottawa and the Ambassador Bridge in Windsor. While these emergency orders will be temporary. We have every intention to bring new legislation forward that will make these measures permanent in law. We're taking these steps necessary to support our police as they do what it takes to restore law and order. And please, my friends, make no mistake, this is a pivotal moment for our nation. The eyes of the world are upon us right now, and what they are seeing is not who we are. It's not what Canada is about. This is not how we try to change things here in Canada. We do it through the ballot box because we are Canadian, and we are better than that. And so, as a province, as a nation, we must collectively draw a line. We must stand for the values that define us. We must come together right now. We must heal the divide that is fracturing our society. We must come together now, not as opponents, but as Canadians. And we must see that the sacrifices we're forced to make were made for a reason. To see that because of the actions we took over the last 2 years, tens of thousands of lives were saved from COVID-19. As hard as it's been, these sacrifices were necessary to protect tens of thousands of our neighbors, our friends, our family members. And there's no price that we could put on that. So, to the protesters I say, we've heard you, and it's time to go. To the auto workers, truckers, and all those affected by the Ambassador Bridge closure, I say, we will take whatever steps are necessary to ensure the border is reopened. To the people of Ottawa under siege, I say, we will ensure you're able to resume life and business as soon as possible. And to our brave women and men in uniform, I want you to know that you have my full support as you work to manage the situation and do whatever it takes to bring these occupations
to an end. This is a live news event. Premier Ford, you're listening to City News, 101.1 FM, 1310 AM.
Just a reminder, it's one question and one follow-up.
Morning, Premier. Matthew Bingley, Global News. It has been 5 days now since we've seen hundreds of millions of dollars lost at an international trade route, and at the same time, Canada's trade reputation has taken a massive hit in this. It has been 2 weeks since Ottawa saw the protesters dig in there. Why has it taken you so long to come out with measures like you are today?
Well, first of all, they're extraordinary measures. I can tell you, I've been on the phone with the Prime Minister, premiers across this country, U.S. Ambassador, governors, and the mayors as well, to make sure that we do everything we can to do this peacefully. And I emphasize peacefully. We have tried and tried and tried. The occupiers in Ottawa, they are not listening. The trade problems that we would see if we didn't clear the Ambassador Bridge would be unprecedented, absolutely unprecedented. As the world is watching, businesses and people around the world are wondering, is this a safe and stable jurisdiction to invest? My answer to them is yes, it is. We said Ontario's open for business, and we will always be open for business. This is not a time for divide in our country and our province. The toughest thing I can tell the folks out there about this whole pandemic is the divide we see from coworkers, from friends, and family. That is the toughest thing, and it's time that we come together as a country and as a province and show the world that's not what Canada's about. Canada's the greatest place in the entire world to live, to work, and to raise a family. We're going to move forward as quickly as we can to clear the bridge, to get people's lives back to normal in Ottawa. And we will use every tool in our toolbox to make sure that happens.
You said it yourself that the protesters aren't listening. Are fines enough to get them to leave, or are you giving police the powers to physically remove them?
Well, again, I just want to make it very clear that I do not, and I repeat, do not direct the police. We make the laws, the police enforce the laws. But again, we cannot, and I emphasize cannot, have people occupying cities, holding them hostage, holding millions and millions of people hostage to go to their jobs, and tens and tens and tens of thousands of people cannot go to their job because they're being shut down because the parts or the widget or the food cannot get across the border, not because of the truckers. Because I can tell you folks, 99% of the truckers out there right now are working their backs off to put food on our table, to make sure parts get to the factories until we can keep the economy going. The last count I heard at the bridge, there was 5 truckers. The rest were pedestrian cars. This is about a political statement. That's what it's about. I think the world of our truckers. I support our truckers. I've supported our truckers from day one, but that is not representative of our truckers. The Trucking Association is clearly demonstrated that they are not in favor of this. So again, to the occupiers, please go home.
Hi, good morning, Premier. Colin DeMello from CTV News. This was a pretty consequential weekend, this last weekend in Ontario. You call it a siege. Ottawa police said it was an insurrection. A day later, Ottawa police, or the city of Ottawa, declared a state of emergency. On Saturday, there was, of course, a large-scale protest in downtown Toronto. There have been a lot of questions about you and your visibility. Premier, CTV News has obtained photos of you in cottage country. We've spoken with people who took pictures with you who say you were snowmobiling on Saturday, Premier. Can you explain why you decided to go snowmobiling during a stated insurrection and siege in Ottawa?
Let me make it very clear, Colin. I've been on this phone almost 24/7, along with the premiers, U.S. ambassadors, the governor, the prime minister, around the clock. Make no mistake, I have been engaged from the second this has happened, and I'll be continuing being engaged with the authorities that we need to talk to.
Fair enough, but you're not dismissing what I'm saying here. I'm asking you, Premier, were you snowmobiling on Saturday in cottage country while Ottawa was under siege, as you say?
Let me tell you, Colin, I was at the cottage. I went out on my snowmobile. I take calls till 1 o'clock in the morning. I get calls before 6 o'clock in the morning, and I will not stop until we get this taken care of. And I will continue to make sure we're engaged in every single area of our responsibility.
Premier Richard Southern with City News.
How you doing, Richard?
Good. You mentioned the end of the Vax Pass today. There's a video floating online of you being a bit more specific to that. On that, can you tell us today, sir, when this vaccine certificate program is ending?
Well, we're going to take the advice, which I have right from day one from Dr. Moore, and I've always made sure our decisions are based on health and on science. And we put this plan together well before this protest started. And it's been a plan that we've been working on for months. We're waiting for recommendations from Dr. Moore. I think we all heard very clearly last week and this week that Dr. Moore wants to move forward with these measures. And once we take that recommendation, we'll bring it to Cabinet and we'll make the decision.
But Premier, there's a video saying, purportedly of you saying, I'm going to pull the Vax Pass.
And that's
it sounds like you made up your mind, sir. Can you just tell us what that decision is?
You know something? It's based on what Dr. Moore said the previous week and what Dr. Moore said yesterday. I can be very clear, Richard, that I will never, ever negotiate that people that break the law, that people that are in there illegally and occupying cities. I base it on health. I base it on science. Dr. Moore has clearly said it's time to move forward. I look forward to Dr. Moore's measures and recommendations, and will continue to work with Dr. Moore to reopen safely and cautiously.
Hi, Premier. Charlie Pinkerton from iPolitics. How long will it be, can you clarify, until these new orders are put in place? And when should protesters be facing fines, the jail time that you've announced today?
Well, I'll pass it to our Solicitor General, but again, I'll repeat what I just said. I'll wait for the recommendations. What Dr. Moore brings to our cabinet, we'll make the decisions based on that, and I'll pass the next question over to the Solicitor General.
Thank you. So as the Premier mentioned, the initial declaration will be for 42 hours. The Cabinet will be meeting tomorrow to go over further amendments, and I think that you will see in the spring legislative session that we're going to start to deal with some of these safety problems that are causing people to be on public highways, on public roads, putting themselves and the community in danger. It speaks to there is a wide difference between a demonstration that people make their point and go home, and people put their lives, their families' lives, and communities at risk. That's unfortunately what we are now seeing in Windsor, and of course in Ottawa for the last number of days, over a week. We want to make sure that people can safely go to work, access their homes, access their businesses, and unfortunately in Ottawa and Windsor that is not happening right now. So we are doing that with this declaration. Thank you.
Okay, and my other question is just, police have had a very difficult time trying to disperse these protesters. Obviously, that's why we're here today. What if this doesn't work? What next do you have as a tool to try to resolve this situation, and when will you escalate things?
Well, first of all, I always have, I'll always support our police, and I have confidence in our OPP, our RCMP, and local municipal police, and I'm sure they'll get the job done.
Hi, Premier. Andy Takagi with QP Briefing. I just wanted to ask you, there were reports yesterday that a quarter of the trucks still remaining in Ottawa had children among them, and that's why there was difficulty removing the trucks from downtown Ottawa. I was wondering, is there any action being considered against the parents of children that still remain in the convoy, and do you have any message to the parents and children remaining?
As I said in my comments earlier, I urge you, please take your kids home. Please get your kids home. The place for a protest occupation is not a place for children. So I urge you, take your kids home.
This will be the last question.
And my next question is, Ontario turned down a third trilateral meeting with the federal government and the city of Ottawa. Why not take leadership in addressing these protests, and why wait until you're being asked to act before sending in the LPP?
Well, first of all, we've been acting from the second this has happened. When the regions, be it Ottawa, asked for support from our OPP, they ended up getting support. I'll tell you what people don't want. People don't want another table, a bunch of politicians sitting there talking. People want to see action, and that's what we're taking. We're taking decisive action to make sure we end the occupation and we get the goods on the Ambassador Bridge traveling back and forth freely without anyone impeding their transportation. This is critical to our economy, and I'll tell you, it's not going to be tolerated. In saying that, I want everyone to work together. I want this to be peaceful, and we need to make sure that we get the goods to the facilities. Folks, I got to stress to you, we're in a critical situation worldwide economically. We have competitors breathing down our back on a daily basis. We're competing against our neighbors south of the border. We're competing against the rest of the world. And the last thing we need is an anchor around our neck when we're competing. These people need to make sure they leave the Ambassador Bridge immediately for the sake of hundreds of thousands of workers, millions of families that depend on a paycheck going into these factories, going into these auto plants, making sure food gets distributed up here. That's what this is all about. I want to thank you, and God bless the people of Ontario.
Ontario
Thanks,
Premier
everyone.
Doug Ford describing the situation in Ottawa as a siege and calling the protesters occupiers as he declares a state of emergency in response to the ongoing blockades both here and in Windsor. You've been listening to a live breaking news event here on City News.
March 1st is the deadline to contribute to
Opening a business especially in a pandemic, in that kind of situation, is very challenging. First, people don't know me, people don't know my product. To build a new clientele, to build a trust for them, to show them that I care about it. I do love my food. That was the biggest challenge. And of course, in all lockdown, I had to face it regards my employee, girls, ladies, what they work for me. I didn't want to tell them, sorry, I'm closed, I'm not having a job for you. No, they have families, they have kids to feed. So this is very important because we are family orientated. And we decided to open. We, of course, essential business. So been very tough, very, very tough, as we didn't see people on the road. Market was completely quiet, but we knew it that we have to wait, and we knew it that we're gonna be fine. In this town, we built online shop, Vedel Online, and we did Uber Eats, which one is picking up and is very, very popular. We have a really good feedback. So this is the song from my heart. And and we try to expand. I'm thinking about opening another location. So I want to make Vedel famous. I want to make the Vedel place to be for all the families with kids. Try the traditional food, what their grandparents cooked in the countries when they're from, or even Canadian people. They're more than welcome to come and try our famous pierogis. I try to be passionate about my food, organic food made with love, with all homemade, organic. So you can find food from all over the Europe: Polish, German, Ukrainian, Romanian, French, Armenian. So all kind of different types of food. Homemade lunches. We focus on the homemade lunches, grandma style. I keep always saying, like in my Genia Babcia house, how she cooked. I wanted this love and this food over here because I believe that would bring all people around me. And all the organic cold cuts, lovely selection of sausages, cheeses, European cheeses, great selections of mustards, French cookies. All what you need from Europe you can find here at the Vedel Touch of Europe. If you think good way, that's it. You have to. I had the option to cry in the corner and say, oh, pandemic is coming. No, you need to stand up and fight for it and have your eyes open, think outside of the box and do it.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
So Ontario Premier Doug Ford says he is declaring a state of emergency in response to the ongoing blockades here in Ottawa and in Windsor. He called the Ottawa situation a siege. He called the protesters occupiers. He called the situation a hostage situation. And he says he's going to enact orders that would make it, quote unquote, crystal clear that it is illegal and punishable to block and impede the movement of goods and people and services along critical infrastructure. He says that includes protecting international border crossings, 400 series highways, airports, ports, bridges, railways, and he will enact rules that could bring fines for noncompliance of $100,000 a year, $100,000 a year. and up to a year in jail. So this comes, 15 days now. We're into the third week of the situation in Ottawa. We had anticipated some news out of Doug Ford's news conference today, and it did not disappoint. So there you go. One of the interesting questions came from CTV News, the Queen's Park reporter there, Colin DeMello, who asked the Premier if it was true that he was at his cottage last weekend when the siege was underway here in Ottawa and that he was snowmobiling. Let's listen to that.
Premier, CTV News has obtained photos of you in cottage country. We've spoken with people who took pictures with you who say you were snowmobiling on Saturday, Premier. Can you explain why you decided to go snowmobiling during a stated insurrection and siege in Ottawa?
Let me make it very clear, Colin. I've been on this phone almost 24/7, along with the premiers, U.S. ambassadors, the governor, the prime minister, around the clock. Make no mistake, I have been engaged from the second this has happened, and I'll be continuing being engaged with the authorities that we need to talk to.
Fair enough, but you're not dismissing what I'm saying here. I'm asking you, Premier, were you snowmobiling on Saturday in cottage country while Ottawa was under siege, as you say?
Let me tell you, Colin, I was at the cottage. I went out on my snowmobile. I take calls till 1 o'clock in the morning. I get calls before 6 o'clock in the morning, and I will not stop until we get this taken care of. And I will continue to make sure we're engaged in every single area of our responsibility.
So admitting he was at the cottage, and yes, he was snowmobiling, but basically telling the news reporter that it did not in any way impede his ability to respond to the situation. So let's go to the House of Commons right now. On Friday, they have the question period for the House of Commons in the morning. So we're going to listen to a little bit of the parliamentary question period.
It's a very difficult time when every citizen is tired of the pandemic. Unfortunately, found out this week from the president of the Liberal Quebec caucus that the Prime Minister chose an approach that would divide and stigmatize Canadians. The opposition and more Liberal members consider that the Prime Minister needs to table a plan for a return to normal life. When will we see this plan that will give hope to Canadians? The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Monsieur le Président, depuis les débuts, nous soutenons toutes les villes qui sont impactées par la...
We are with all cities that are impacted by the convoy. We've added resources such as RCMP officers in order to offer tactical and logistical support. And we are ready to offer more support. We've had productive meetings with the city today. We will continue to monitor the situation and pursue a strategy to get out of the pandemic through vaccination. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable. Madam Speaker, that's not a plan. For months now, Canadians have spoken out. The Prime Minister is responsible for the current situation. When Canadians suffer, when they're waiting for some hope, they can't just be content with being told that he understands them. He's the Prime Minister, and it is his responsibility. The member for Mont-Royal and Parliamentary Secretary clearly expressed in this place why will the Prime Minister still refuse to present a plan to put an end to vaccination mandates and restrictions. The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Madame la Présidente, nous avons une stratégie et un plan.
Madam Speaker, we have a clear plan. Our strategy will get us out of the pandemic through vaccinations. When it comes to measures at the border, we will continue to listen to our public officials who work in public health. This is an effective plan, but now this convoy has to leave. It's not a demonstration of respect for the law. We need to uphold the law. That's how we live here in Canada. The Honourable Member from Mégantic-l'Érable. Madam Speaker, please allow me to explain to my colleague that Canadians are wondering, and they have reason to do so, what is the criteria that's going to be used to raise restrictions? The vaccine mandates, working at home, PCR tests at the border. Is the Prime Minister waiting for 100% of Canadians to be vaccinated? We are the most vaccinated country in the G7. Canadians have done their part, and we're proud of it. My last question for the Prime Minister is this. What's his plan to quickly end and peacefully end the protests, which are gaining ground? Why? Because of his lack of leadership. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister of Health. I would like to thank my honourable colleague for the question. Canadians have worked hard to end the spread of COVID-19, but we have to continue our efforts. We all have a role to play in preventing its spread, and we all have to work together to get through the crisis.
Public health measures like physical distancing, wearing a mask, and yes, as my honourable colleague pointed out, getting vaccinated, we are all keeping our communities safe. And I thank my members opposite for ensuring that their communities continue to do so.
The Honourable Member for Barrie Innisfil.
Canadians need and want a clear plan to end the mandates and restrictions. This week, 4 Liberal MPs came out against their own government and are demanding that the mandates be removed. I agree with them, and I also completely agree with the Liberal member from Louis-Hébert who said that the Prime Minister has intentionally stigmatized and divided Canadians for political gain. The Prime Minister has stopped basing his decisions on science. He's now basing them on political science, doing whatever it takes to save his own political skin. When will Canadians have a clear plan to end the mandates?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And ever since the beginning of this pandemic, Canadians have all wanted to know when this will be over and when we can go back to the way that things were before. I count myself among them. And every step of the way, we have had to adjust measures. We've developed new proposals and introduced novel programs to help keep Canadians safe and to ensure that Canadians know what's going on in a timely manner. The drop in Omicron cases recently means that we can make some changes. Things have already begun to change across the country, but we're going to continue to follow the science, the evidence, and we've done that from the start. And it's kept Canadians safe, and I reject the notion that we're allowing politics to get in the way when the member opposite is clearly...
The Honourable Member for Barrie Innisfil.
It's not based on science, it's based on political science. Yesterday at Ethics Committee, Anne Cavoukian said she found it disturbing that the government collected phone data without informing the public first, or worse, without their consent. Serious questions remain about whether the privacy rights of Canadians have been protected. The Privacy Commissioner has received so many complaints that he's opened an investigation. Canadians want answers. They also want PHAC to halt this program until their privacy can be guaranteed. Will the government respect the decision of the House of Commons to immediately suspend this data gathering program until we are sure that the privacy rights of Canadians have been...
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Our top priority from the very beginning of this pandemic has always been keeping Canadians healthy and safe while upholding the privacy standards that Canadians expect. And over the course of the pandemic, the Public Health Agency of Canada has used de-identified and aggregated data to perform and inform our government's response to COVID-19 and to transparently provide Canadians with information on the pandemic. That mobility data is released to the public and updated weekly via COVID Trends and the Weather Canada application. And while the mobility data being used by the Public Health Agency of Canada contains no personal information whatsoever, we will continue collaborating with the Ethics Commissioner and remain committed to safeguarding.
Honorable Député de Saint-Jean.
The Deputy Speaker really cuts
Madam
the
Speaker,
members
reinforcements
off.
are coming to Ottawa for the weekend,
gracious.
but once again...
Thank you. So a little taste of the parliamentary question period, which on Friday is held in the morning at this hour. It usually starts around 11:15, and then they'll call it quits a little later on, and MPs can head back to their ridings. So speaking for the Liberal side, you heard there was the former Olympian, Adam Van Couverton, who is the parliamentary secretary to the health minister. Literally, one of the big criticisms is that the Trudeau government needs to get away from the talking points, that it's stuck in the muck on the talking points, and it can't get out of its own way because of the talking points. Mr. Van Couverton literally reading from a script off of a computer screen as he attends the House of Commons virtually. The government House leader for the Conservatives there had a pretty good line that this policy for vaccine mandates for truckers is not based on science, it's based on political science. Yeah, that's not a bad line. That's not a bad line. Okay, so that's a taste of the politics of the day from the press conference from Doug Ford, where he's announcing these new emergency measures and big fines of up to $100,000 and some jail time. A little taste of the parliamentary question period. Coming up next, a debate. Our weekly panel, it's called Queen's Park Week in Review, and my goodness, we have a lot of material to work with this week. We'll speak with our MPPs. They will assemble and join us next, right after the 11:30 news. Rob Snow Show, City News.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, February 11th. Good morning. I'm Danielle Bain. Right now in Ottawa, it's +1, mostly cloudy, and in Smiths Falls, it's +3. Here's what's making news this hour. Doug Ford just spoke at a media briefing to address COVID restrictions in the province and the ongoing protests. In regard to the demonstrations in Ottawa and Windsor, Ford is declaring a provincial state of emergency with fines for non-compliance up to $100,000 and up to a year in prison. He also said that as hospitals continue to see declines in patient numbers, restrictions will loosen for hurting businesses. He added that Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Kieran Moore, is working on a plan to remove vaccine passports in the province. NDP leader Andrea Horwath is in Ottawa today talking to small businesses who have been affected by the occupation. She says it's completely unthinkable that Ottawa gets left behind as the Premier turns his focus on clearing the Ambassador Bridge in Windsor. The province says there are 1,829 people in hospital with COVID-19, a drop of 68 from yesterday. 435 people still require intensive care. There are 2,900 new COVID cases across the province today. 191 come from Ottawa, 57 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, 47 in Eastern Ontario, and another 24 cases coming from Renfrew. The unbeaten streak continues. Canada's women's hockey team steamrolled Sweden with an 11-0 win in the quarterfinals in Beijing this morning. Their opponent in the semifinals are not yet known as two more quarterfinal games play out on Saturday. City News Time, 11:32. I'm Danielle Bain, and for news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Firm.
Fair.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM.
and 1310 AM.
Okay, everybody is assembled. It's time for Queen's Park Week in Review. There is Much to discuss with our MPPs. Gilles Bisson is the New Democrat MPP. His riding is Timmins. Good morning, Gilles.
Good morning.
John Fraser, Liberal MPP, Ottawa South. Good morning, John.
Morning, Rob.
Hi, John. Andrea Kangin, PC MPP, Barrie Innisfil.
Top of the morning, everyone.
Morning, Andrea. Thank you for joining us this morning. So let's listen to the Premier outlining just moments ago, Premier Doug Ford at a news conference, the new measures for Ontario. Roll tape, David.
Fines for noncompliance will be severe, with a maximum penalty of $100,000 and up to a year imprisonment. We will also provide additional authority to consider taking away the personal and commercial licenses of anyone who doesn't comply with these orders. This will not impede the rights of Ontarians to peacefully protest. It will provide additional tools to help stop the illegal occupation of Ottawa and the Ambassador Bridge in Windsor.
Okay, so John Fraser, I want to begin with you because he did call it that and more, a siege, a hostage taking. He called them occupiers. And now these measures are being announced, not only for the Ottawa situation, but as he mentioned, because of the situation Windsor-Detroit. What do you think about what the Premier has just announced?
I think it's a good thing. I think it's important. I also think it's at least a week late. And, citizens in Ottawa here, have became a cautionary tale for the city of Toronto. Toronto was able to manage it well because they knew what was coming. But nobody thought that might happen at Windsor. And so we needed a strong message, or nobody thought that might happen at Windsor. Nobody considered what was going on here, given the information that we have. So I think stronger action last week would have been a good thing. I think here's what I hear from people. I hate the word jurisdiction. People say, don't say that word to me. All of you folks, they don't care who the mayor is. They don't care who the premier is. They don't care who the prime minister is. The average person in the street just saying, get it done. Get in a room. I'm glad they're doing it this morning. I'm glad they're holding those funds. Those are good things. The thing I think that people are upset about, and they're saying it very clearly, is you folks, stop thinking about yourselves. Think about me.
Okay. Gilles Bisson?
Well, listen, I welcome the Premier's move. I'll agree with John. It's late. There's been a mixed message given by the Premier from the beginning. At one point, he's encouraging people to protest, and we all agreed. Nobody on this panel is going to say people don't have the right to have a lawful protest. We've been part of them over the years, but there's a bit of a mixed message there, and I think that kind of leads to the problem. The other thing is, and that what really troubles me with what's going on, is that, we know there's a strong buy in America policy. Joe Biden and a whole bunch of American states and senators and others would love nothing more than to shift production out of places like Canada and Mexico and bring it into the United States. And this plays into that, and this is the part that I find is troubling, as well as the flaunting of the law. So welcome news. We've been asking the Premier to do some of the things, such as removing the CVORs of those people who persist and don't want to leave. Glad to see that he's moving in that direction, but I'll agree like John. It should have been done a little bit more forcefully at the beginning.
Okay. Too late. Welcome, but too late. What do you say to that, Andrea Kangin?
Well, I don't think it's late because we've been at the forefront since the beginning. Premier Ford's been active and calling mayors and being in communication with all levels of government. Minister McLeod's been in communication from day one, whether it was the airport businesses or the local mayor. Minister Sylvia Jones, we're taking an all-of-government approach to this. I think it's inappropriate to fan the flames and make it political. That's irresponsible. This is an issue that's happening across the nation. It's not just happening in Ottawa. It's happening in Manitoba. It's happening in Alberta. And of course, in other parts of Ontario, it's also happening in Windsor. So, what you saw today was an addition to the actions that have already taken place. People, like the Premier said very well in the press conference today, people don't want to see politicians just talking and taking political credit. They want action. And that's exactly what we've been doing from day one, is taking action, even asking if more resources are needed when it comes to the Solicitor General. We know that the government does not direct police officers, but certainly we can implement additional policies or bring additional resources like we've done from the beginning.
Well, actually, we do direct police officers. That's why we have a Solicitor General. Listen,
Okay, just a second, John. Just a second, John. Go ahead, Jill. Go ahead, Jill.
Others are pointing out there's things that you could have done earlier, and such as COVORs and all that stuff is somehow political. Like it's not a good argument, because in the end, government is all, and the legislature is all about members who are elected bringing forward their points of view and ideas on how to deal with the issues of the day. And to say that somehow we're political because we're raising some of the things that the government's not doing, I think is quite frankly hurtful and I think dishonest.
John?
So, Andrea, I mean, you say action as much as you like. Was the people who got action in the city, the person who got action was a 21-year-old public servant who took the truckers to court and got the horn honking, which is actually assault, stopped. But here's the other thing. You're saying the Solicitor General is sending officers to the city. Well, she wrote a missive, first of all, praising Toronto and then criticizing Ottawa, and then saying we've sent Ottawa 1,500 officers. Well, no, you didn't actually. The minister got it kind of mixed up. You sent 1,500 officer person days, which is about 150 a day. So they were trying to inflate the number. People see through that. Just like I couldn't believe that. We don't say, we're sending 3,000 peacekeeper days to Bosnia. No, we say we're sending 300 troops. And that's the impression that the minister was trying to create. And I think, all politics aside, and I have great respect for Mr. Jones, get along very well. I think the people here in Ottawa are going like, I don't care who it is. You just told me something that wasn't true. How do you think that makes people feel? Forget us politicians. Like, that's not supporting. That's not action. That's politics. That's politics. That's exactly what it is. And our job as elected officials, our most important job, is the security of everybody who we represent. It's all of our jobs. It's not just one of our jobs. We don't divide it up in parts. When something bad happens, we get together and we fix it right away.
Okay. Do you want to respond to that, Andrea? Or?
Yeah, I would say, I'm glad that you agree, because that's what we've been trying to do from the very beginning is stay united. It's a united front against keeping the economy open, keeping millions of dollars of trade opening, allowing kids to go to school. Like we've seen winter, their schooling's been disrupted. Just as school has started to be in person, those children have to go online because of the siege that's happened and the blockade that's happened. This is no longer a protest. That is the difference between a week ago to now, is it went from a peaceful protest to no longer being peaceful, where additional actions are needed. And this is, today's announcement is an additional layer of support in addition to what was already been announced. So when it talks about, fundraising dollars that shouldn't be dedicated, that are international dollars that the Attorney General has done, again, a whole of government approach. Attorney General is acting. We've got our Minister of Transportation who's acting as well. Solicitor General, Minister McLeod in Ottawa, being a local regional minister. So this isn't just something that happened overnight. A lot of these actions have been happening over days, and some of them obviously take some time, and we tried to be as expeditious as possible because there's a sense of urgency. And what I will add is you had the Premier going out today taking real serious action, taking a real serious tone to help people.
Okay.
And this is happening across the country. We don't see anyone else standing up to this leadership role and taking serious action to protect our families.
Just hold on. Just let me jump in. Just let me jump in here, because what's lighting up the look, I know Twitter's not real life, but it is indicative, I guess, of what some people interest some people. So nevertheless, the question from the CTV News reporter to the Premier. Are we going to play? Do you want to play that, David? Yeah, let's play this. Colin DeMello is the Queen's Park reporter, CTV News. This is what he asked the Premier this morning.
Premier, CTV News has obtained photos of you in cottage country. We've spoken with people who took pictures with you who say you were snowmobiling on Saturday, Premier. Can you explain why you decided to go snowmobiling during a stated insurrection and siege in Ottawa?
Let me make it very clear, Colin. I've been on this phone almost 24/7, along with the premiers, U.S. ambassadors, the governor, the prime minister, around the clock. Make no mistake, I have been engaged from the second this has happened, and I'll be continuing being engaged with the authorities that we need to talk to.
Fair enough, but you're not dismissing what I'm saying here. I'm asking you, Premier, were you snowmobiling on Saturday in cottage country while Ottawa was under siege, as you say?
Let me tell you, Colin, I was at the cottage. I went out on my snowmobile. I take calls till 1 o'clock in the morning. I get calls before 6 o'clock in the morning, and I will not stop until we get this taken care of.
Okay, all right.
And I will continue to make.
All right. Gilles?
Well,
you have a
listen,
snowmobile? Gilles, you have a snowmobile?
Listen, I'm not going to fault somebody for wanting to go to their cottage and, ride a snowmobile. We all understand we're human beings. And
Is that a gotcha question?
It is a gotcha question in the sense that the Premier is trying to have it both ways, and so is Andrea. We're doing everything possible. We're on this 24/7. We're dealing with it. We're taking this very seriously, and I think it was bad political judgment on the part of the Premier to say, well, I'm off to the cottage this weekend, especially given what's going on, not only in Windsor, Toronto, and Ottawa. And so I think it's just poor judgment, and it's unfortunate. Let's hope that he learns from that.
I don't know. I don't know where the Premier's cottage is. Do the phones work there? Does he have internet there?
The phones work there. That's not my point.
Right.
My point is,
does his cell phone work there?
It shows. Listen, it shows bad political judgment that you would take off from the city at a time that we're in the middle of the situation that we're in.
Okay.
And that's my point. Does the Premier have the right to go skidooing? Absolutely.
Right.
Does he have a right to go to his cottage? Absolutely. But I think you need to be careful about when you do those things, not to send the wrong message.
All right. John, what do you think, John?
Well, look, I think it speaks for itself.
What do you mean by that? It speaks for itself. What do you mean?
What are people in Ottawa going to think? What are people downtown going to think?
Well, a lot of us were wondering a lot of people in Ottawa were wondering where Justin Trudeau was for 10 days. That's where was he? I believe Justin Trudeau was at his cottage.
Good point.
I'm not defending. I'm not defending Justin Trudeau or the mayor or anybody else. All I know is there are 3,000 people out of work at the Rideau Group over in downtown Ottawa.
Okay.
They were not getting a paycheck. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us to be working 24/7 for them to get a paycheck. I don't begrudge the Premier wanting to have some outdoor getting fresh air. I don't begrudge that. But I think right now, given the fact that there was no demonstrable action taken in the city of Ottawa until maybe the beginning of this week when we got that letter saying that they'd given us something that they hadn't, I just think people are I'm not going to tell people what to think about it. They can figure it out for themselves.
All right. You want to respond to that, Andrea?
Sure. I mean, look, as a new mom with a 11-week-old at home, I certainly think we can multitask as public servants. We've got technology on our side. There's a lot of people who've been multitasking throughout this pandemic, and certainly actions speak louder than words. And this Premier, actions speak for themselves. He came out with some strong statements today, saying these blockaders have the right to make a political statement, but that right does not outweigh the rights of hundreds of thousands of workers to earn a living wage, including those mentioned at the Rideau Mall. And so from day one, aside from this blockade, but we've been trying to get people back to work safely. And the measures that are for non-compliance that were announced today with a penalty of $100,000 up to a year imprisonment, I think sends a very clear message that we want those individuals to be able to go back to work, and those people who choose to do the blockade, it's not welcomed anymore. It's already taken too much of intensity of the
All right. We have to stop. We have to stop, Jill. We have to stop. We can pick it up on the other side. We'll pick it up on the other side. Queen's Park Weekend Review, Rob Snow Show, City News.
It's such a beautiful feel because it's all natural. I'm able to talk to a lot of people who are going through different journeys of health where they really don't know where to start, where to begin. And I'm happy and grateful to have all this knowledge where I can actually help them and guide them. So, of course, medications have a great place in our system, but even so do natural therapies, which have been around for centuries and centuries. Like, old time, ancient times, everything, herbs grew, everything was done with nature, all healing was done with nature. So I'm totally in love with all the elements with nature. In our beautiful village of Manotick, the Manotick Natural Market, you can find tremendous different things. So we have herbs, we have vitamins, we have natural body care, we do infrared sauna therapy, nutrition counseling, acupuncture, Bowen therapy, energy healing. So we're like a wellness hub along with being a full health food store. We are 1 year into pandemic since it started last year in March. It was a shock. Usually I see things coming, and I definitely did not see that coming. Golden Root is a product that I created 4 years ago, actually for my kids, just for immune system, overall health. And it just took off with certain friends of mine who had cancer, some severe issues, and they started finding that it was really helping them from different tests they had done with their doctor. And I knew I had something really special. So then I went through the proper procedure of being able to sell it. So it's actually, I'm not allowed to make it anymore in my house 4 years ago, and it is made in a Health Canada approved lab, and then it comes to me. And what Golden Root is a formulation of turmeric, ginger, lavender, oregano, and black pepper, all food grade, which is the most bioavailable turmeric in the market right now for pain, inflammation, digestion, immune system, concussion, liver health, and brain health. So, and it tastes like salad dressing. We do a lot of in-house, so we make our in-house concoctions of teas. You can come here, tell us what your health issues are, and we can blend it right there. And there's some that are already prepared beforehand for sleeping, for anxiety, for different things. And in that bar, we basically make cold brew teas and cold brew nitrogen coffee. And again, it's all local. Everything we do is local, and as many herbs we can find locally as well. If a client can't come out, we'll go out our way to deliver it. And you're getting that personal touch when you come in. If you have an issue, we will listen and help you. We're very, very active in the community, so we would like the same thing back for the community to come to.
Community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
So we're back. Queen's Park Week in Review. We only have about 8 minutes left, so we better launch right into it. Andrea Kangin, Progressive Conservative, Gilles Bisson, New Democrat, John Fraser, Liberal, my guests. Ford government is being criticized for turning down 3 invitations to participate in trilateral talks to deal with these demonstrations. This is, the Premier was asked about this during his news conference. This is what he had to say.
I'll tell you what people don't want. People don't want another table, a bunch of politicians sitting there talking. People want to see action, and that's what we're taking. We're taking decisive action to make sure we end the occupation and we get the goods on the Ambassador Bridge traveling back and forth freely without anyone impeding their transportation.
Okay, reaction to that, please, John Fraser. It's a waste of time. These talks are a waste of time. It's just talk. All talk, no action, John.
What should have happened last week is, and this is on everybody, 3 days in, 4 days in, all the politicians should have got into a room. That's what people expect. And, for, the Premier now to say, I'm taking action, 2 weeks, 14 days, at least 10 days into occupation. Look, that doesn't wash. It's late. And nobody cares who the Premier is, and say it again, who the Prime Minister is, who the Mayor is. All they want is, you folks, you get in a room, you agree, and you make sure that our city is safe and I don't lose my income. And this has been going on for 14 days in Ottawa. And for the Premier to say that he's taking action, I think any resident in Ottawa who heard that would say, I don't think so, Premier. Why don't you come down and take a look?
Okay. Gilles Bisson? Gilles?
Wow, that was a statement and a half, I must say, by the Premier. Okay, let me see if I understand what he's saying. Politicians getting together in a room to discuss how to be able to resolve a situation like this is bad? Like the federal, provincial, municipal government shouldn't talk and strategize about how to bring our borders and bring Ottawa back into normalcy? But this politician, Doug Ford, can do what he wants. He doesn't have to talk to anybody. No wonder he went to his cottage on the weekend.
Amen. Amen, Jill. Amen to that.
Man, oh man, oh man.
And can you imagine if that was John Yakubuski on the show and it was an NDP premier who went to the cottagers skiing? My God, they'd be swinging from the chandeliers.
They would.
Oh, wow.
They would, yeah. Andrea, gosh, you're in tough today, Andrea, but...
I will just say that, this is the premier who, got rid of the ability for the Adopt a Truck from Ontario Donations to be able to fund these blockades. So that action has been taken to stop the Go Send Go funds. This is the same premier who today stood up, the first of all premiers across this nation where these types of blockades are happening, talking about non-compliance fees where people could be fined $100,000 or a year imprisonment. This is the same premier who stood up today to talk about the possibility of these truckers losing their license, which will include losing their livelihoods if they don't take serious action to stop the blockade and allow other people to resume their livelihoods. This is the same premier who sent reinforcements of OPP officers. This is the same premier who's on the phone until after midnight, day in and day out. Like that battery on his cell phone, I tell you, it's getting its money.
There you go.
This is that premier. He's been at the helm from the very beginning of this pandemic, bringing certainty to this province and reassuring Ontarians that he's got their back. And that includes the individuals and the residents that live in Ottawa. It includes those living in Windsor and across this province.
Well, I guess I got a question, Rob.
Okay. Do you want me to answer it or Andrea?
Yeah, I want you. Anybody can answer the question. If the things that happened in Windsor hadn't happened this week, do you think this would be happening?
Would this be happening? Yeah. Is this? Yeah, a lot of us in Eastern Ontario have been wondering that.
Yeah.
Words like occupation, hostage taking, these are occupiers, siege, all of this stuff. Would the premier be saying those kinds of things today if this solidarity blockade or whatever you want to call it didn't take over the Ambassador Bridge? That's a fair question, I think. Yeah. I've been asking that question.
I think what's clear is the premier understands, as all of us on the show, and you understand, Rob, you can't mess around with the supply chain.
Well, yeah, you can't mess around with the Ambassador Bridge.
Yeah, you can't mess around with what comes in and out of the country when it comes to food and when it comes to our economy. So, of course, the premier, elevated his game as a result of that, and I guess Ottawa may end up benefiting out of it, but in the end, we shouldn't have allowed it to get as far as we did. I think there was some encouragements from the premier's words that people had the right to protest, which we all agree. People have the right to protest, but they don't have the right to shut down the economy.
Well, let's not forget this press conference that all of us just heard, where the premier said himself, yes, they have the right to a political statement, but that does not outweigh the rights of 1 million people in Ottawa to live peacefully free or harassment-free and chaos-free in their own homes. So we talked directly about Ottawa, and as someone like myself who went to school in Ottawa and worked there for a few years, certainly we need to understand that not only is there OPP reinforcements right now, but there's also RCMP, legislative security, and local Ottawa police. So all hands have been on deck to help the scenario, and certainly it's switched from a peaceful protest to a blockade, and that means additional actions have been made in addition to sending the police reinforcements so that people in Ottawa can return back to their life, and those businesses can again return to doing what they do best, which is running their business.
Well, it was evident there was it was evident.
John, you're suggesting that we would be ignored here in the Ottawa area if not for that Ambassador Bridge situation. Right? Is that what you're saying?
The questions cross my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, what's happening right now is, instead of the 3 or 4 or 5,000.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to think of the ridings that are progressive conservative ridings here. You have, Goldie Gamari's riding, Jeremy Roberts, Dr. Fullerton in the West End. Lisa MacLeod is really the only one we've heard from.
Yeah. Yeah, and just recently.
Well, no, I wouldn't say just recently. She
This week.
Look, I mean, I will add in here,
right.
Goldie Gamari has been vocal on this too. When there was, there was talk about, Lisa MacLeod or Minister Jones not talking to the mayor, like they've been trying to get through to him at the very beginning. I guess there was a case of not picking up the phone on the mayor's part, but regardless of that, we'll stay united, and certainly we want to help the people of Ottawa, and that's what we've done. And whether it's, Jeremy Roberts talking to the premier or Goldie Gamari or Minister MacLeod or Minister Fullerton. Certainly, we've got a really strong team of people there who've made the case of needed supports, and that's why the Solicitor General sent reinforcements, and we are where we are today.
We got to go. This is going to send us out this week. Stomp and Tom, the little Stomp and Tom to send us out this week, okay?
Baby, it'll make you feel like an outdoor meal on a snowmobile.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Listen to the sound of the bells go round. The winter carnival's here. And
I'm back on Monday.
At the crack of the gun when the
Rob Snow
whole
Show
land
City News.
disappears. The race is on from the bush to the pond and back where
The Rob Snow Show.
Weekdays 9 to noon on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com